5. All right, Wayne, I'm going to step away for a few minutes. See you in about 5-6 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Oh yeah, good idea. Yeah, okay.
Be right there, my friend, in just about another minute or two. All right, buddy. I think we're good.
Okay, good.
Ay.
It's probably a good break. Get my voice a little break.
Yeah. Give yourself a little rest.
Yeah, I shouldn't use the word break. I could use a break.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, we've been going for a while.
My guy's like, well, would you like your hand broken? Your leg? Oh, I'm disappointed with that answer.
Oh boy.
Oh, would you like your heart broken? Yeah, lots of women over here.
Ay. All right, brother. I'm gonna go down in about 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay. All right, my friends. We are back, I hope. Hopefully everything sounds okay. Make sure. Okay, that's up. All right. So, sorry about the interruption for anyone who is watching the replay right now. The stream got cut off in the middle of Wayne talking, so we're gonna jump right back into it. Thank you everyone again for your patience. All right, Wayne, where do we leave off before our arcanic attack?
Well, it's kind of fortuitous. I mean, it was pretty much right at the end of the Dolores canon material anyways, so we were going to go into the Michael Newton material. And so I just wanted to give one last thing that it kind of is a good segue into his too, because she says, Dolores wrote, it's amazing that all the information in this book was obtained from many different people who did not know each other. They were of various religions and occupations, yet in spite of their differences, the information they gave while in deep trance does not contradict, but rather complements each other. In many places, it fits so well when combined that it almost sounds as though it came from one person instead of several. This is an amazing phenomenon in itself that, when put together, creates a solid book of cohesive information. To me, this is proof that they were seeing and reporting similar scenes when regressed to the so-called dead state. If they all see the same things, then I believe the afterlife must be a very real, identifiable place with definite rules and regulations and a hierarchy that keeps it all in order, end quote. So that was what she had to say. And the Michael Newton, so he's got two, well, he's got more than two books, but the two ones that I thought were the best were the first two, Journey of Souls, Case Studies of Life Between Lives, and that came out in 1994. And kind of on the same lines, he said, quote, once in hypnosis, people report the pictures they see and dialogue they hear in their unconscious minds as literal observations. In response to questions, subjects cannot lie, but they may misinterpret something seen in their unconscious mind, just as we do in the conscious state. In hypnosis, people have trouble relating to anything they don't believe is the truth. Some critics of hypnosis believe a subject in trance will fabricate memories and bias their responses in order to adopt any theoretical framework suggested by the hypnotist. I find this generalization to be a false premise. In my work, I treat each case as if I were hearing the information for the first time. If a subject were somehow able to overcome hypnosis procedure and construct a deliberate fantasy about the spirit world or free associate from preset ideas about their afterlife, these responses would soon become inconsistent with my other case reports. I learned the value of careful cross-examination early in my work, and I found no evidence of anyone faking their spiritual experiences to please please me. In fact, subjects in hypnosis are not hesitant in correcting my misinterpretations of their statements. He says, in the early statements of hypnosis, regression in the past lives, the descriptions of subjects mentally going through their past deaths do not contradict the reported statements of people who have actually died in this life for a few minutes. The difference between these two groups of people is that subjects in hypnosis are not remembering their experiences of temporary death. People in a deep trance state are capable of describing what life is like after permanent physical death, end quote. And I guess that's a valid point to make, is that NDEers only, they get to that certain point and they end up coming back. They didn't, go through to the the next stage. And whereas supposedly in between lives, they can ask, what happened between these two lives and all that stuff, but I think the source is less, what's the veracity of it? I guess I could say is not quite as strong if you're under hypnotic regression, I think, versus like somebody who, the NDEers, they remember it like they were just there, and it's like hyper consciousness,
Yeah. It's two totally different types of approaches, but it can funnel into the same old archonic song and dance, I guess we can.
And while
say.
He may be correct in saying maybe they're not lying, but they may be, what they say may not be true. I guess there's a difference, right? Maybe they think they think what they're saying is the truth, so they're not quote unquote lying, but they may not be reporting, something that's actually.
If you've got and what would you do? Like if you're running the Matrix, you would send out those who, like the lower class, lower educated class, I guess, of the Matrix. You can send them down and they would just do it because that's where they stand.
They're whispering in the person's ear, telling them, they're looking for the answer to the question, and they're like whispering it right in their ear, kind of, who knows. So he's talking about, in the book Journey of Souls, he's talking about the tunnel. I got the book right here too. I think I showed it earlier, but there it is, Journey of Souls. They're talking about the tunnel, and the subject says it's a hollow, dim vent, and there's a small circle of light at the other end. And he says, I feel a tugging, a gentle pulling. I think I'm supposed to drift through this tunnel. It's like in the movie Soul, where the souls want to go away from the light. It's like, I don't think you're supposed to go that way. So the subject says, I see my guide coming towards me. She knows what I need. And Dr. Newton says, tell me what transpires between you and your guide. He says, I say to her, I can't go on, that I need to know Maggie and the children are going to be okay. And he says, and how does your guide respond? She's comforting me, but I'm too loaded down. What do you say to her? I tell her, why did you allow this to happen? How could you do this to me? You made me go through such pain and hardship with Maggie, and now you cut off our life together. What does your guide do? She's trying to soothe me, telling me I did a good job and that I will see my life ran its intended course. Do you accept what she says? In my mind, information comes to me. Yeah, they're asking some pointed questions, man. In my mind, information comes to me of the future on Earth, that the family is getting on without me, accepting that I'm gone, that they're going to make it, and we will all see each other again. And he's like, and how does this make you feel? It's like, anyway, so then they have a section on
why don't you take a seat on the couch?
You're right. It's like what's the word? I don't know. It's the
therapist.
Yeah, what do you call it?
I guess,
it's the cliche line that a hypnotherapist says. How does that make you feel? Okay, so they get a section on homecoming, right? And Dr. Newton asks the subject, is there anyone here to meet you? He's like, I thought I was alone, but in the distance, light moving fast towards me. Oh my gosh. And he says, what is it? Uncle Charlie, I'm over here. And he's smiling and holding out his hand to me. And does this mean he has a body of some sort with hands? Well, yes and no. I'm floating around, and so is he. It's in my mind. He is showing all of himself to me, and what I am most aware of is this hand stretched out to me. Why is he holding out his hand to you in a materialized way? To comfort me, to lead me further into the light. And what do? I'm going with him, and we were thinking about the good times we spent together playing in the hay on the farm. And is he letting you see all this in your mind so you'll know who he is? Yes, I knew him in my last life, so I won't be afraid. He knows I'm still a little shocked over my death. Then right after death, no matter how many deaths we may have experienced in other lives, it is possible to be a little fearful until we get used to the spirit world again. It's not really fear. That's wrong. More like I'm apprehensive, maybe. It varies for me each time. The car crash caught me unprepared. I'm still a little mixed up. Dr. Newton says, all right, let's go forward a bit more. What is Uncle Charlie doing now? He's taking me to the place I should go. Dr. Newton says, on the count of 3, let's go there. 1, 2, 3. Tell me what's happening. There are other people around and they look friendly. As I approach, they seem to want me to join them. And Newton says, continue to move towards
friendly.
them. Yeah. Do you get the impression they may be waiting for you? Yes. In fact, I realize I've been with them before. No, don't go. What's happening now? Uncle Charlie is leaving me. Why is he going away? And he's like, well, go there. He says, well, he stays in a different place than I do. He just came to me to meet me, to bring me here. So that's kind of a little disconcerting.
Bring you here. Yeah, it's all about the control.
Yeah. So Dr. Newton says, what happens to you at the moment of death? The subject says, I feel a great sense of release and I move out fast. This is a different subject, by the way. Says, how would you characterize your departure from Earth into the spirit world? I shoot up like a column of light and I'm on my way. I know the way. I don't need to see anybody. I'm in a hurry. Dr. Newton says, and it doesn't bother you? There's no one, that you're not met by anyone? He says, there was a time when it was good, but I don't require that sort of thing anymore. Whose decision was it to allow you to enter the spirit world without assistance? It was a mutual decision between my teacher and me when I knew I could handle things by myself. He's like, I don't need my hand held anymore. I know where I'm going and I'm anxious to go there. I'm being pulled along by a magnet and I just enjoy the ride. Dr. Newton
like
says,
a magnet, and that's what they describe. Oh my God!
Yeah, that's
so much.
They're not in control of the process, right? They're just being yanked around, jerked around. Dr. Newton
they're not sticking up for themselves at all.
Yeah, they're not. And as a matter of fact, when we get into the NDEs, Melon Thomas, I think his name is, he said, whoa, so he stopped the whole process right in the middle and started asking all kinds of questions, and they obliged him. But most people are just going along with the ride. They're not questioning. Maybe they're questioning it, but they're not, asking questions or saying stop right there.
They're just stopping and kind of halting themselves with their intention, but then falling right back into it.
Exactly. He's like, so Dr. Newton says, explain to me how this pulling process works, which will take you to your destination. He says, I'm riding on a wave, a beam of light. Is this beam electromagnetic or what? Well, it's similar to the bands of a radio with someone turning the dial and finding the right frequency for me. Are you saying you're being guided by an invisible force without much voluntary control and that you can't speed things up as you did right after death? Yes, I must go with the wave bands of light. The waves have direction. I'm flowing with it. It's easy. They do it all for you. Yes, who does it for you? The ones in control. I don't really know. It's like, then you're not in control. You don't have the responsibility of finding your own destination. Like, my mind is in tune with the movement. I flow with the resonance. Resonance, you hear sounds? He's like, yes, the wave beam vibrates. I'm locked into this too. Dr. Newton says, let's go back to your statement about the radio. Is your spiritual travel influenced by vibrational frequencies such as high, medium, and low resonance quality? That's not bad. Yes, and I'm on a line like a homing beacon of sound and light. It's part of my own tonal pattern, my frequency. It's like, think of a monster tuning fork inside a flashing strobe light. Dr. Newton says, oh, then there's energy here. He's like, we have energy within an energy field. So it isn't just the lines we travel on. We generate energy ourselves. We can use these forces depending on our experience. Then your maturity level does give you some element of control in the rate and direction of travel. Yes, but not right here. Later, when I'm settled, I can move around much more on my own. It's like, now I'm being pulled and I'm supposed to go with it. Dr. Newton says, okay, stay with this and describe to me what happens next. He says, I'm moving alone, being homed into my proper space, going where I belong. That's probably the most telling segment of the entire book almost. I mean, it's one of the top ones for sure.
For sure. Going
being
where
pulled
I belong.
along like a magnet, not in control, to where he goes, where he belongs, all that stuff. And it's like a big freaking magnet or a tuning fork, what's the word? It's like when you get in resonance with something, it's entrainment or something. It's just kind of like, Yeah. So anyway, there's this orientation and a shower of healing, and he's propelled, and I see a bright, warm beam that reaches out to me as a stream of liquid energy. There's a vapor-like steam swirling around me at first, gently touching my soul as if it was alive. So it's like he and Dolores Cannon both describe the same kind of shower kind of thing that kind of cleans them, you know. It's interesting because they both were coming at it independently, I assume. But so it says Dr. Newton's talking. He says the orientation stage, which immediately follows, especially with younger souls, involves a substantial counseling session with one's guide. The newly refreshed soul arrives at the station to undergo a debriefing of the life just ended. Orientation is also designed as an intake interview to provide further emotional release and readjustment back into the spirit world. People in hypnosis who discuss the type of counseling which goes on during orientation say their guides are gentle but probing. Nothing can be hidden by students. Nothing can be hidden by students from their spiritual teachers. No subterfuge or deception exists in a telepathic world. Dr. Newton says, this is another subject, I think. He says, you sound a little depressed at the prospect of an intimate conversation with your guide about your last life. Because I blew it. I have to see him to explain why things didn't work out. Life is so hard. I try to do it right, but do what right? I had an agreement with Clodes to work on setting goals and then following through. He had expectations for me as Ross. Damn, now I have to face him with this. And he says, you don't feel you met the contract you had with your advisor about lessons to be learned as Ross? It's like, no, I was terrible. And of course I have to do it all over again. We never seem to get it perfect. You know, if it weren't for Earth's beauty, the birds, flowers, trees, I would never go back. It's too much trouble.
Truth bombs all up raining down on us.
Isn't it though, man? It's
God.
Somebody says, when we choose a body and make a plan before coming back to Earth, there's an agreement with our advisors. Yeah, and I first went over, I mentioned this about 7 years ago when I was on Greg Carlwood's show, and I touched very briefly on Journey of Souls, and I mentioned some of these stuff, but I couldn't go into that kind of detail like I'm able to do here because we're really doing a deep dive and spending hours, which is great. So, so he says, when we choose a body and make a plan before coming back to Earth, there is an agreement with our advisors. An agreement about what? We agree not to remember other lives. Why? Learning from a blank slate is better than knowing in advance what could happen to you because of what you did before. But wouldn't knowing about your past life mistakes be valuable in avoiding the same pitfalls in this life? Well, if people knew all about their past, many might pay too much attention to it rather than trying out new approaches to the same problem. The new life must be taken seriously. Are there any other reasons? Without having old memories, our advisors say there is less preoccupation for trying to avenge the past, to get even for the wrongs done to you. You know, if we're evolving so much, why would we be doing all that anyway? It's like... Anyway, so Dr. Newton says, well, it seems to me that so far this has been part of the motivation and conduct in your life as Hester. And do you still think a total blackout of our eternal spiritual life on Earth is essential to progress? Normally, yes, but it's not a total blackout. We get flashes from dreams during times of crisis. People have an inner knowing of what direction to take when it's necessary. And sometimes your friends can fudge a little. By friends, you mean entities from the spirit world? They give you hints by flashing ideas.
Flashing ideas, like implanted thoughts.
Yeah, like whispering in your ear, or you go to sleep at night, man, you don't know what kinds of propaganda you're being fed, right?
That's the craziest part of is that it's like, oh, what is going on? We have no clue.
Yeah, it might be like that movie Dark City. So he's talking about the transition, and Dr. Newton says, my subjects report that the initial orientation session with their guides prepares them to go before a panel of superior beings. However, the words courtroom and trial are not used to describe these proceedings. No, of course not. A number of my cases have called these wise beings directors and even judges, but most refer to them as a council of masters or elders. This board of review is generally composed of between 3 and 7 members, and since souls appear before them after arriving at their home base. He says, this does not mean souls are exonerated for their acts which harmed others simply because they are sorry. Karmic payment will come in a future life. I have been told that our spiritual masters constantly remind us that because the human brain does not have an innate moral sense of ethics. Now, why is that? Why would they do it that way? See, conscience is the soul's responsibility. This world is ageless, and so too are our learning tasks. We will be given other chances in our struggle for growth. When the initial conference with our guide is over, we leave the place of orientation and join a coordinated flow of activity involving the transit of enormous numbers of other souls into a kind of central receiving station.
Yeah, it pops up again. Mm-hmm. I mean, like it's a way station or whatever.
Yeah. And he says, my subjects say this region appears to them as having a large number of unacquainted spirits moving in and out of the hub in an efficient manner with no congestion. Another person called this area the Los Angeles Freeway without gridlock. Here's the subject says, other subjects who are also disposed towards linear descriptions speak of traveling along directional force lines, which have the spatial properties of a grid system. One person called them vibrational streams. By less freedom, do you mean less personal control? Yes. And he says, what I'm trying to say is I'm being carried along as if I were in a current underwater. Why do you think this is so? Well, it's as if we were all swimming, being carried along in a swift current which we can't control, under somebody's direction, up and down from each other in space, with nothing solid around us. Who is doing the pushing while you are being taken home? Higher entities, the ones in charge of our movements to get us home. Entities such as your guide, above him, I think. What else are you feeling at this moment? Peace. There's such peace you never want to leave again. More like a long corridor bulging out in places, stretching out away from me into the distance. And Dr. Newton asks, how do you see individual souls within the clusters? As light dots, I see masses of dots hanging in clumps as hanging grapes, all lit up. Do these clumps represent various groups of soul energy masses with space between them? Yes, they are separated into small groups, and I am going to my own clump. What else do you feel about them as you pass by on the way to your cluster? I mean, they're using these words like clumps and clusters, and they even use the word hive later, and pods and stuff.
Wow, and he says, just loaded.
Yeah, Newton says, let's pass on by these clusters, which seem to bulge out along a corridor. Give me an example of what the whole thing looks like to you from a distance. And the person says, a long glowworm, its sides bulging in and out, the movement is rhythmic. You mean the corridor itself appears to move? Yes, parts of it, swaying as a ribbon in the breeze while I'm going further away. That just conjures up the whole parasitic idea, right? Like you said, glowworm, Yeah. And as seen collectively, he's saying we look like freaking hives of these glowworms. he's like, after a while, I see nests of people. You mean groups of people? Yes, like hives. I see them as bunches of moving lights, fireflies. All right, keep moving and tell me what you feel. Warmth, friendship, empathy. It's dreamy. What is it? I've slowed down. Things are different. How? More clearly defined. I know this place. Have you reached your own hive cluster group? Now that you are stationary, what are your impressions? It's large activity. There are a lot of people in the vicinity. Some are familiar to me, others are not. And he's like, later on, he says, are you saying to me your soul energy cannot arbitrarily float anywhere, such as outside your group? He's like, they are not in my group over there. Define what you mean by over there. Those others nearby, that's their place. This is our place. We are here. Anyway, so he's talking about these different groups and what, where they're allowed to go and can't go. And
and then they got the colors and all sorts of different crap that's going on to try and basically corral them into a certain existence that the Matrix wants. It's nuts. And it's so blatant. There's no hiding it. I mean, it's all right there. It's just that everyone's in this haze. They're in this total... It's nuts.
Yeah, it says there are great expanses of space and such a sense of freedom here as long as we pay attention to the rules. And what if you don't? Who decides what is the proper location for each group of souls? The teachers help us. Otherwise, we would be lost. Dr. Newton says the average soul with a great deal of basic work to do describes the separation of their group from others as similar to being in different classrooms in the same schoolhouse. I've had clients who felt they were entirely separated in their own schoolhouse. They are summoned to appear before a council of elders. They do engage in direct examination of a soul's activity before returning them to their groups. It's not unusual for my subjects to have some difficulty providing me with full details of what transpires at these hearings. I'm sure these blocks are intentional. Wow. Placement. Yeah, he's basically, even Dr. Newton saying that there's intentional blocks, you know.
Do you remember well, keep going. I'll bring it up in a little while, actually.
So group placement is determined by soul level. After physical death, a soul's journey back home ends with debarkation to the space reserved for their own colony. It's interesting. These words are coming up. When people in trance speak of being part of a soul, when people in trance, I guess when you talk about the hypnotherapy trance, I thought he was talking about the NDE trance. When people in trance speak of being part of a soul cluster group, they're talking about a small primary unit of entities who have direct and frequent contact, such as we would see in a human family. It says, spiritual ponds appear to be endless, and within these ponds, I've never heard of a secondary group estimated at less than 1,000 souls. And many primary members of 2 secondary groups become the number of souls that's so great but not necessary. And then the smaller subgroup vary in number, anywhere from 3 to 25 souls. I'm told the average assemblage is around 15, which is called the inner circle. Any working contact between members of different cluster groups is governed by the lessons to be learned during an incarnation. So that's the breakdown on that. And then he goes into, they're talking about Greek temples of study, and he goes to school with his friends and then like a spiritual classroom. They help each other grow up their mistakes, and the teachers there, and their old guides continue to monitor them through one master teacher. And a new pot of entities graduating into full level 3 could be brought together from many clusters within 1 or more secondary groups, man. Oh,
it's just on and on and on.
Yeah. And these guides, he says, I've never worked with a subject in trance who did not have a personal guide. Much depends upon the type of souls in the section and the experience of the leaders. And the larger sections, they have help too, you know. And Dr. Newton says, who does? The guides you are calling seniors. Well, who helps them? The overseers. Now, they are the real pros. Like, they are the real pros. It's like, I've heard of them, also called master teachers. And so he's like, so we don't get to choose our guides? He's like, no way, they choose you. Dr. Newton writes, national surveys by psychologists indicate 1 person in 10 admits to hearing voices which are frequently positive and instructional in nature. It's a relief for many people to learn their inner voices are not the hallucinations associated with the mentally ill, rather than something to be worried about. An inner voice is like having your own resident counselor on call. More often than not, these voices are those of our guides. And then talks about the beginner soul. He goes, I've had many cases where a client has been incarnating for up to 30,000 years on Earth and is still in the lower levels of 1 and 2. The reverse is also true with a few people, although rapid acceleration in spiritual development is uncommon. As with any educational model, students find certain lessons more difficult than others. One of my clients has not been able to conquer envy for 850 years in numerous lives, but she did not have too much trouble overcoming bigotry by the end of this same period. Another has spent nearly 1,700 years off and on seeking some sort of authoritative power over others. However, he's gained compassion.
That one's going to be primed for the pump later on when the Matrix wants to lure them in for a guide, or maybe a really nasty archon down here on Earth. Oh yeah, that's guide material.
Look at all those lives and thousands of years just for one freaking little tiny lesson. If you could make a list of like, well, we got 7 deadly sins. There's like all kinds of stuff you could work on, right? I mean, it's oh my God,
endless.
And so there's another. She says, Chavez, now that you've died and returned to the spirit world, tell me what you feel. Cheated. That life was so cruel. I couldn't stay. I was only a little girl and unable to help anybody. What a mistake. Who made this mistake? In a conspiratorial tone. My leader, I trusted his judgment, but he was wrong to send me into that cruel life to be killed before my life got started. But you did agree to come into the body of Chavez. I didn't know Earth would be such an awful place full of terror. I wasn't given all the facts. The whole stupid life was a mistake, and my leader is responsible. Man, that's right from Dr. Newton's patient himself, right?
Part of me thinks I wonder if that's the carriage story.
I don't remember.
Yeah. Do you have a name with that one?
Just the Chavez thing.
Okay.
That's just, they always say Dr. N and then the response is S. Same thing with Dolores Cannon. I guess they want to keep, confidentiality or whatever. Sometimes they give a person's first name, but it's just S for subject, right?
Yep.
And so then they talk about creation of souls. I've learned there seems to be a kind of spirit world maternity ward for newborn souls. One client told me this place is where infantile light is arranged in a honeycomb fashion as unhatched eggs ready to be used. And Dr. Newton's another part I got here says, what happens next?
Hive mind.
The
hive mind,
right?
honeycomb.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
My old friends are around me and we are talking about the foolishness of life. We rib each other about how dramatic it all is all down there on Earth and how seriously we all take our lives. You and your friends don't think it's important to take life on Earth seriously? Look, Earth is one big stage play. We all know that. And Dr. Newton says, and your group is united in this feeling? Sure, we see ourselves as actors in a gigantic stage production. How many entities are in your particular cluster group in the spirit world? Well, we work with some others, but there are 5 of us who are close. And then they talk about this cone of harmony, this cone.
Very harmonic. It's just incredible.
Yes,
I mean, I can feel my vibration raising right now. I don't know about you, Wayne. It's raising.
I'm tingling all over, man. Got the tingles.
I feel my life script just calling me right now.
Students are a colorful family of souls. There's much here that is typical of all cluster groups. A guide's leadership is more parental than dictatorial. They talk about these watchers. These watchers give information about our imagination, creativity, and ingenuity. And then they get into intermediate souls and talk about soul splitting and parallel lives. And what's the original unit? They say the maker. Part of us never leaves since we don't totally separate from the maker. Occasionally, there are 3 or more parallel lives. Then they talk about a world without ego, and it's like the newly created soul is there to learn who they are. It's the place of origin. Are the ego identities passed out at random, or is there a choice for beginner souls? Good question. The new soul is not capable of choice. The new soul is not capable of choice. You acquire your character based upon the way your energy is combined, put together for you. And so he says, once given, ego becomes a covenant between oneself and the givers. What does that mean? To do the best I can with who I am. The distribution of soul identity by advanced beings. Yes, the new soul is pure energy with no real self yet. The world without ego provides you with a signature. So it's like, where's the free will in this? They're just like, I think I'll make you this. And I'm sorry, you're uglier than everybody else. And you're,
Yeah, I mean, it really makes you wonder. Yeah, it makes you wonder how the whole thing starts off initially. I mean, there's such a gap in our knowledge with all of this that, I seriously think basically we knock on the door and we say, hey, we want to try that shit. And they're like, okay, well, sign it out of line. We don't get all the information, or, it's kind of skewed. And then it's like, boom, you're just cast into this thing and like, oh, well, here's a guide. They're going to help show you around, over here's the water cooler. Over here's, the snack bar and, all this stuff. And they're just going to run you around in circles, and then you just keep losing ourselves, and then eventually it's just at that point it doesn't matter.
And it's not like I'm just cherry picking, like, oh, there's 100 books out on this, and I'm going to cherry pick the 3 that serve, what I'm talking about. It's like, no, man. It's like for years and years and years and years, it was like Journey of Souls, Dr. Newton, and if you even knew about it, Dolores Cannon had 1 book on it, which I went over, and then these obscure books in the past, like Between Life Between Lies, and just kind of mentioned, but there wasn't anything else. And I don't know, maybe there's other stuff now, but I don't keep up with all of it. But this is the go-to stuff. I mean, it's like the 2 or 3 people, and they're saying, I mean, what the stuff they're exposing just in this alone. I mean, what didn't they even put in the book that they were afraid to include? Who knows?
Yeah.
So
I mean, do you remember just really quickly with Newton, do you remember at the beginning towards the beginning, it wasn't too far in, of Destiny of Souls. He starts off, I think it's like in the very beginning, he talks about how he had a friend come to him and basically say, hey, it's not like he's not crapping on Newton's work, but he's saying basically something's wrong here. They're saying, hey, there's a hierarchy, there's something wrong. And then, of course, Newton explains it away for, a few pages and then moves on. And then the book starts, or, it's not long after, maybe like the first couple chapters it's talked about. But then I think in Journey of Souls, or it could have also been Destiny of Souls, Newton was giving a lecture somewhere, and he has someone in the audience and he's explaining everything, his findings, blah 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 blah, and someone just stops him in the middle of the lecture and says, Doctor, he goes, I knew it. He just says, I knew it. And then he goes, I knew something was wrong. I knew we were being controlled or messed with, something like that. And of course, again, Newton explains it away. But there are those two moments, and I think it was one in each, but I know those two things came up in both those books. And of course, Newton said, oh, the guy was furious and blah, blah, blah. Well, yeah, no shit, because the guy's having a realization right before his eyes.
I may have seen that. I mean, I did a deep dive into this stuff like in 95 or late 90s. And, Dr. Newton went on the Art Bell show on my birthday, and I remember driving down to like the San Antonio area just so I could pick it up from the station with the signal. And but I got like, there's a video of him, and I heard that, and then I bought like cassette tapes of both Dolores Cannon and him, where they were like giving seminars, and I probably heard that question, but I was like so naive back then. I was just getting out of Christianity, and I was kind of dabbling my toe in like the New Age type stuff. And I remember reading, I felt like Journey of Souls was like, oh my God, I finally found the answer.
Yes.
This is like my Bible. This information's so spot on. It makes sense. And it wasn't until like years later when I was like started questioning some of this stuff. When it's like when I revisited, it's like, holy cow, there's all kinds of clues in there.
And it's saturated. Yeah,
but I think most people that are in the spiritual community, they look at the Journey of Souls. They don't. There's no like red flags go off in their mind. Like I don't know, man.
Yeah, they take it at face value, but it's the same thing with the NDE stuff. I mean, they just take it at face value. Everything is on the up and up, and it couldn't possibly be a whole hatchet job behind the scenes. I mean, but that's where I was with NDEs and the whole journey. Yeah. Journey of Souls I went through years ago, but again, I was lost. I was completely lost, and I was, lost in the sauce and just buying it, buying all the NDEs, and then slowly something just stuck in. Your website happened to me.
I was like, when I read Embraced by the Light, and then later Saved by the Light, and Life After Life. I mean, I remember giving those books to my dad to read. My dad bought like 3 or 4 copies and sent them to like family back home. It's just like, I was just like, oh yeah, this makes sense. This makes sense. And then now I'm like completely 180 flip on it. It's just, it's like, who knows what we aren't aware of right now,
Sure.
So then he talks a little about refurbished souls and the world of all knowing. It's a dimension where realization of all our hopes and dreams is possible. All souls are anxious to reach and be absorbed by this nucleus, especially as they draw closer and are enticed by what little they can see.
Enticed.
Yeah,
keyword.
Absorbed. That sounds like Star Trek, right? Yeah. Where does the world of altered time fall? He asks. As the subject says, we can change time sequences to study specific events to improve my decisions for life. This study makes me more discriminating and prepares me for the world of all knowing. And then there's this Earth 2 that they talk about. I think they just go down there to kind of like practice stuff. And
it's like a training ground.
Yeah. And it's like we roam among the forests, the deserts, and over oceans with no responsibilities. And he says the maker's energy joins the units of every living thing in existence. And we copy things and compare them against the original so we can make larger models. And Dr. Newton says, this all sounds like souls playing as children in a sandbox with toys. He says, we are children. Directing an energy flow resembles the sculpturing of clay. He says,
busting out the clay analogy.
I was thinking about that when I read the word clumps and stuff like that. It's like, and they're making you, and they can make you anything they want. It's almost like, well, you get to be a clump of clay, you know? This other person says, if I'm clumsy and do a bad job, I disassemble some creations. I undo my abominations. You can destroy energy. Energy can't be destroyed. We reassembled it and start over using different combinations. So, he's talked about I'm left with the impression the spirit world is one huge organizational pyramid with a supreme authority of power at the top. It's like, no, you are wrong. It's not a pyramid. We are all threads in the same long piece of fabric. We are all woven into it. Think of it as a moving continuum rather than souls being in brackets of highs and lows. And Dr. Newton says, I always think of souls moving up in their existence. I know you do, but consider us moving across. They talk about a little bit of advanced souls, and at some point they say, we communicate by absorbing the energy presence of each other. And then they talk about these watchers. They talk about these watchers and this being, I think it's a counselor, or I guess the watcher, his name is Kumara. You remember this Sanat Kumara character? Is this being's name? Does Kumara ever talk about these entities who help her? To me, only a little. She aspires to be one of them. And the doctor says, how many souls are in your company? And he says, 9. I prefer to remember the Council of 9 we were talking about. With Star Trek
I mean that extends its
Roddenberry.
With the whole Star Trek. Oh my lord!
Yeah, and then that got into the whole Star Trek
hole.
Thing. Was talking about the Federation, right? What was it called? The
Federation of Light, or well, that's like the
Galactic Federation or something like that. Didn't that all kind of start?
Galactic Federation,
or at least promoted by Star Trek. And so his experiences with this Council of 9. Yeah. And now you sent me a link about, and I went off and started listening. And then I heard that they were talking about the Council of 9. So apparently some of these people in this truth movement are like talking to this Council of 9 or something.
I think sorry.
Yeah, I don't get on any names. So we'll get back on track.
Yeah, I mean that video, if it's the one I'm thinking of, that guy's like a holy roller. But boy, did he do his homework on that video.
But while we're talking about this 9 and the Council of 9, it reminds me of all that stuff. And they're like still active, apparently. How many souls are in your company? 9. And he is I prefer to call myself a watcher. 3 of my company are also watchers. And Dr. Newton says, I would call Kumara a master teacher. And they're talking about, as watchers in the stillness, we recognize the amount of turbulence from the wake of troubled thought. Then we carefully merge with it and gently touch the mind. So this is you're talking about them implanting thoughts and stuff like that. They're like, almost sounds like what they're talking about. They merge and touch the mind and stuff. It's a slipstream of thought, which is usually turbulent rather than smooth from someone in distress. I was awkward at first, and I still don't have Kumara's skill. One must enter with subtlety to wait for the best receptivity. What exactly do you do from the spirit world to comfort or advise one of the 9 company members on Earth? No answer. Do you know what I'm asking? How do you implant ideas? And it's like, I'm unable to tell you. And it's like, note, I suspect blocking here, but I can't complain. So far, they've been liberal with information, and so has their guide. I decide to stop the session. And so it's like, boom, they just like, oh, you're going too far here with this. They're blocking, obviously, certain information from coming through.
Yeah, it's like, okay, that's enough.
Yeah.
Turn around.
Talk about the interference of watchers, and Dr. Newton says, why would you interfere with what a sun would naturally do with its own energy on a planet? And it's like, it's not interference. We examine new structures, mutations, to watch and see what is workable. We arrange substances for their most effective use with different suns. And he's talking about the source, the concentrated energy, the old ones, and then Dr. Newton's talked about Kumara and the entities above her. We are expected to join them just as they wish to unite their accomplished energy with the old ones. So now they're talking about the merging of souls, right, into bigger entities. And
I think why they do that is to almost build upon their power, and
they get bigger and stronger.
Yeah, it's like, oh, instead of
They probably
having,
figured out, oh, I don't need to come to Earth to become bigger and stronger and go all through our suffering.
yeah,
I'll just eat other souls.
Yeah,
I'll get them to go down and grow, and then I'll just get them to merge with me, and boom.
oh my gosh,
maybe,
talk
I don't
about,
know.
yeah, I mean, I
Who
can
knows?
totally see it working that way. And then instead of them just having, you know, ooh, hoity-toity basic creator being abilities, they have this ridiculous amount of, you know, creators within them. Let's just say 5, 10, 15, 20, whatever the number is. And they're able to just, you know, run circles around the realm or realms or us.
Yeah. They say the subject says the Earth school is insecure still. It's filled with resentment of many people over being led and antagonism of the leaders toward each other. There's so much fear to overcome here. It's a world in conflict because there's too much diversity among too many people. Other worlds have low populations with more harmony. Earth's population has outpaced its mental development. And they're talking about bringing order out of disorder. Now, where have I heard that one? There are easier life forms who are less in conflict with themselves. Boom, that's what we're saying all along.
Yep.
There's better places to go to. And so it's as if souls are all part of a massive electrical explosion which produces a halo effect. And this circular halo is a dark purple light which flares out, lightening to a whiteness at the edges. Our awareness begins at the edges of brilliant light, and as we grow, we become more engulfed in the darker light. The dark light is itself a covering beyond which we feel an intense warmth, full of knowing presence, which is everywhere for us and alive. And then they talk about the source, and it's like the source is endless. The souls, we will never die. We know that somehow. As we coalesce, our increasing wisdom makes the source stronger, just what we're saying, to give life to us so we can arrive at a state of perfection. There's the perfection thing again. Why does a source who is ostensibly, this is Dr. Newton says, why does a source who is ostensibly perfect already need to create further intelligence, which is less than perfect? Great question. Yeah. To help the creator create in this way, by self-transformation and rising to higher plateaus of fulfillment, we add to the building blocks of life. It's like we came to be magnified in the beautiful variety of creation. Dr. Newton's like, if the source needs to be made stronger or more wise by using a division of its divine energy to create lesser intelligent, which it hopes will magnify, doesn't this suggest it lacks full perfection itself?
Absolutely.
Yeah, the answer
all of a
is
sudden.
You see, Dr. Newton's asking great, you know, Dr. Newton and Dolores Cannon, they're asking great questions and giving great information. Now, maybe the answers they're giving aren't, or maybe the people they're hypnotizing are being manipulated by who knows what. But, okay, so the answer was the source creates for fulfillment of itself. That seems kind of selfish. Yeah,
well, I mean, that's ego shit. That's
exactly
just total, you know, everything about it.
Doesn't sound like the source of all sources. No, it sounds like our immediate source, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's really interesting because I agree with you. I think the questions, when I was going through Journey of Souls and Destiny of Souls, doing the commentary cover to cover, that's what I kept saying. I kept saying, you know, Newton is asking great friggin' questions.
Yeah,
but he just keeps going. He goes from asking that question.
Maybe he doesn't want to go there. Maybe he suspects it.
Yeah,
and maybe his publishers won't let him say, like, maybe if he wanted to go, like, say the stuff that we're saying, maybe the publishers wouldn't allow that back at that time.
It's possible. I mean, the fact
or
that
maybe he didn't feel confident enough, and he didn't want to be perceived as negative or something, you know.
Sure. I mean, he catered to the New Age movement, so I mean, he made his choice with that, or was directed to go that way, because I mean, he did sell a lot of books. He sold a lot of books,
and you catch more flies with honey, as the saying goes. People don't want to be told negative things. They usually want to be, oh, you're infinite source, and you're beautiful, and life here is great, and you evolve and grow.
It's all
versus they kill the messenger, right? You go out and tell her, you know.
Sounds like my comment section.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but I mean, just the fact that Newton brought up the person at the lecture who just said, you know, and then his friend who he did an intro in his book for, like, the first chapter or two. I mean, that right there is crazy. Why would he you know, why would he? I mean, maybe that's his way of slipping it in.
Yes,
I don't know.
Could be.
You know, I mean, I don't know.
Well, either way, his work has been invaluable. Whether you can read through between the lines or take it at face value, either way, it's just food for thought. And so then he asks he asks another brilliant question. He says, how can that which is absolute become more absolute unless something is lacking? That's what I've been saying. Why do you need to grow? When's enough? All that kind of stuff. And the answer is that which we see to be our source is all we can know. And we think what the Creator desires is to express itself through us by birthing. And he says, I see the Creator's perfection maintained and enriched by sharing the possibility of perfection with us. And this is the ultimate extension of itself. Dr. Newton says, so the source starts out by deliberately creating imperfect souls and imperfect life forms for these souls and watches what happens in order to extend itself. Like, yes, and we have to have faith in this decision and trust the process of returning to the origin of life. So here's this faith and trust. So it's like, oh my gosh. So it's like, I'm not a real big fan of faith and trust because you don't really know. It's just like admitting that you're ignorant and don't know, and you're just hoping that.
I mean, faith alone, the word is ridiculous. I mean, faith. I'm just gonna bank on things being what you tell me or what I read, and sure, okay.
So Dr. Newton says, and do you believe that the source didn't create souls to nurture and grow? Its sublime energy would shrink from a lack of expression? And he sighs and says, perhaps that is its purpose. The subject said that. So then they go into the life selection process, and he's like, I've said souls do have the freedom to choose when, where, and who they want to be in their physical lives. Certain souls spend less time in the spirit world in order to accelerate development. See, there's accelerate development, while others are very reluctant to leave. There's no question but what our guides exert great influence in this matter. Just as we were given an intake interview in the orientation phase right after death, there are preparatory exit interviews by spiritual advisors to determine our readiness for rebirth. So you're just getting asked left and right. You're taking to this classroom and these advice. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's just because he's asking these questions about the progress. Maybe there's these long periods in between where we have fun. I don't know.
You're talking about the soul classes, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, because he kept saying, the one area I was not allowed to go into were the details, the nitty gritty about what the hell is going on in those soul classes.
Right.
I mean, he kept saying that. I was like, boy, I wonder why. It's a freaking indoctrination center. Yeah, he'll talk about.
He mentions that at one point. He says, "A person that sounds a little like indoctrination," and the subject goes, "No, it's not."
and you know what's really awesome about how the book is written is that it leaves those pauses, and then if you revisit the book, anyone out there, including Wayne, when he's asking questions that are putting the feet to the fire against these entities, the person who's in regression gets nasty, or they get defensive, or they pause, and
or the entity that's controlling them gets nasty, right?
And Newton's sitting there like, patient gets angry, or a patient gets distraught, or irritated, and then defensive. Patient pauses and gets upset, and then all of a sudden there's like a little I don't even know, just they unfold, they just fold before them and get upset and defensive. It's just nuts. Kind of lost my thought there, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. So then Dr. Newton says, when do you first realize you might be returning to Earth? And he goes, a soft voice comes into my mind and says, it's about time, don't you think? And Dr. Newton says, who is this voice? My instructor. Some of us have to be given a push when they think we are ready again. They have to be given a push when we're ready again. And he says, do you think you'll still be going to Earth when you near the end of your incarnations? He pauses and he says, maybe no, there's another world besides Earth, but with Earth people, what does this mean? It says, Earth will have fewer people, less crowded. It's not clear to me. It's kind of ominous.
Doomsday bullshit. Yeah. So many of those and nothing ever comes true.
So the subject says, I'd like to stay, but the instructors don't want us hanging around here too long or we will get into a rut. Could you insist on staying? Well, yes, the instructors don't force you to leave because they are so gentle, he laughs, but they have their ways of encouraging you when the time comes. Do you know of anyone who didn't want to be reborn again on Earth for any reason? Yes, my friend Mark. He said he had nothing to contribute anymore. He was sick of life on Earth and didn't want to go back. And what did the teachers do with him? Was he allowed to stay in the spirit world? We choose to be reborn when it's decided we are ready. When it is decided we are ready. They don't force you to do anything. Mark was shown he did benefit others around him. What happened to Mark? After some more indoctrination, Mark realized he had been wrong about his abilities, and finally he went back to Earth. And Dr. Newton says, indoctrination? This makes me think of coercion. He's like, I guess you could say, stay here and never be reborn if you hated it that much. But oh, no, I'm sorry. I didn't highlight this, but it's really important. So Dr. Newton says, indoctrination, this makes me think of coercion. It says, subject, disturbed by my remark. It's not that way at all! Exclamation point. Mark was just discouraged and needed the confidence to keep trying. Note, Dr. Newton makes a note. It says, case 10 in chapter 4 on displaced souls told us about how souls who had absorbed too much negative energy from Earth were remodeled. So
remodeled, reset,
refurbished, get your computer refurbished, we'll make patch you up and make you better than ever. So the subject says, I guess you could stay here and never be reborn if you hated it that much, but the instructors told Mark that without life in a body, his studies would take longer. If you lose having direct experience, you miss a great deal. And then they talk about this ring of destiny where it's like a ring where they can kind of, I think they look at on these screens where they can see their next lives and what their options are and all this stuff.
Yeah, and then
the screens also curve around them.
Yeah, and it lines up even like it has like a loose lineup with the wheel of samsara, kind of.
Sorting. Yeah. NDE where they get like they saw a wheel and you just get sorted. It's terrible. Thank God I don't hear too many of those. Just one or so. But it makes you wonder if the Hindus and Buddhists are talking about this wheel of rebirth. Like what did they see in their meditations and stuff?
What was hidden from us? What was suppressed? We're just in such different times, like if back in the day when there wasn't all these electronics and everything else, all they had were themselves, and they had to go within and, like you said, meditate or whatever they're going to do. Astral project, lucid dream. Yeah.
So then Dr. Newton writes, one of the last requirements before embarkation for many souls is to go before the Council of Elders for the second time. While some of my subjects see the council only once between lives, most see them right after death and just before rebirth. And the person says, my guide, Marge, escorts me to a soft white space, which is like being in a cloud-filled enclosure. I see my committee of 3 waiting for me as usual. The middle elders seems to have the most commanding energy. So they're commanding energy.
And large Marge is in charge.
Yeah. So and then he has these conclusions, which it's probably worth going through, but I didn't.
It's up to you. Anyway, whatever you got there.
At the very end, he says, a number of my more advanced subjects have stated there is a growing movement in the spirit world to change the game rules on Earth. These people say their souls had less amnesia about self and the inner life they lived in earlier cultures. It seems in the last few thousand years, there's been tighter blocking on a conscious level of our immortal memories. This has been a contributing factor in the loss of faith in our capacity for self-transcendence. So once again, he's talking about this, they're blocking, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So then I'm going to get a little bit on Destiny of Souls. It's not as long as Journey of Souls by any means, but
take as much time as you need, Wayne. Up to you.
Yeah, I mean, Destiny of Souls kind of revisited some of the stuff in Journey of Souls.
You know what? Actually, you're going into Destiny of Souls next.
Yeah.
All right. So why don't we? We're at about an hour and 10 minutes. So we'll take 5-6 minutes, and then we will reconvene.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you, brother. All right, my friends. We will be back shortly. Thank you for your patience, and see you soon.
Yeah, some awesome stuff.
Yeah, it's great, man.
Yeah, it took a lot of time to go through all these books and copy and paste. I mean, thank God they got, PDFs and stuff where you can copy and paste.
Yeah, it is nice.
Stuff, and otherwise it'd be like, it's just important to actually give the actual words instead of just me saying, well, he says this and says that, and here's what I got from it. It's like, man, I'm actually giving them the actual.
Yeah, you need the source. Yeah. You need the source. Yeah, I try to include sources whenever I can with, especially the books or, hard data where people are actually researching, not just like individual NDEs or stuff. But even then, like if I can leave a source, I will. But I kind of got to be careful with the copyright stuff. That's the only time I don't really leave source information.
About reading a lot of this stuff, and especially posting the text online, because like Cosmic Cradle and stuff. I mean, I got like a lot of, I don't know. I mean, what I read through wasn't that much. I mean,
not too bad. No, fine. All right, man. I'll be right back.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, Wayne.
Sure.
Be right back, my friends. Thank you.
I mean, did you have to like give a analysis or critique of it to make it, which I'm doing here, it's pausing every once in a while and you're giving feedback and I'm commenting on it, but on my notes it's just straight copy from books and stuff.
Well, whatever you want to do. I mean, I don't stress out about it. If you want to do it, you don't even have to do it right away. If you want to do it down the road, or if you don't want to do it at all,
it'll force people to listen to the interview.
Yeah.
Instead.
All right, brother. Let's head back into it.
All right.
All right, so just as a reminder, my friends, this is part 5B. It's episode 5B because we got cut off in the last one. So this is part of the Experiencers segment. One of two, even though there's an A and a B. It's kind of a mess with you a little bit. But next Saturday, Wayne will be returning. That's scheduled at the moment at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It is subject to change, and we're going to dive deeper into things like near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, DMT, alien/interdimensional entities. So just keep that in mind. Also, just want to put out there so you guys know that Dan from the Overwatch channel is coming tomorrow. We had a little bit of a mix up in the schedule. Thought he wasn't going to be able to make it, but it looks like he's going to still be able to come. So tomorrow, that's February 13th, Sunday, 2022 at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that's 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I probably won't have a link up until tomorrow morning, possibly late tonight. But keep an eye out for that. I will send out a notification in the community tab, just so you guys know about the community tab. It's hit or miss if you receive it. Sometimes people do, sometimes people don't. Same thing with notifications. The best thing I could suggest is to make sure that you have, if you want to see these upcoming shows, is to have the bell set to all. Short of that, it's really, sometimes people get notifications, sometimes don't. It's really anyone's guess how it works, if and when it works. I do know from my time on YouTube, as far as the community post goes, if there's a channel I like, I try to hit the thumbs up for the community post, because then they pop up in my feed when someone's live more. But again, it's not really something reliable. It's just something to keep in mind. So yeah, I'll just leave it at that. So we are going to move along with Wayne. So let me bring us back up. All right, Wayne, let's roll, my friend.
Okay, so we're going to get into Destiny of Souls, which is the second book by Dr. Michael Newton. And won't spend quite as much time on this as we did on Journey of Souls, because some of it kind of repeats. But the first thing, one of the things I found interesting was Dr. Newton wrote, the council is not a tribunal of judges nor a courtroom where souls appear to be tried and sentenced for wrongdoing. Although I must admit that once in a while, someone will tell me they feel going in front of the council is like being sent to the principal's office in school. Members of the council want to talk to us about our mistakes and what we can do to correct negative behavior in the next life. And then there's sections like a soul birthing and nurseries. And a person says, I remember being in a nursery of some sort where we were like unhatched eggs in a beehive. See, I think he mentioned that in the first one. Dr. Newton says, Sina, what has been your most significant experience between your lives? And he says, without hesitation, I go to the place of hatching, where souls are hatched. I am an incubator mother, a kind of midwife. Are you telling me you work in a soul nursery? Yes, we help the new ones emerge. We facilitate early maturation by being warm, gentle, and caring. We welcome them. Please explain the surroundings of the place to me. It's gas-like, a honeycomb of cells with swirling currents of energy above. There is intense light. When you say honeycomb, I wonder if you mean that the nursery has a beehive structure or what. Yes, although the nursery itself is a vast emporium without seeming to be limited by outside dimensions, the new souls have their own incubator cells where they stay until their growth is insufficient to be moved away from the emporium. And then, like later, he says, "What are you saying? I get a picture of a long pearl necklace. The souls are the pearls connected in a line. Is this at all accurate?" "Yes, rather like a string of pearls on a silvery conveyor belt."
She wore a pearl necklace.
Yeah, the ZZ Top one, right? Yeah, that's a totally different meaning behind that one. But the honeycomb stuff, and it reminds me of, like the royal jelly and stuff like that. We're just a bunch of little worker bees or honeybees and stuff, and we're in this hive and we're creating the royal jelly for, some queen out there or whatever. But
yes.
Yeah, it's just a whole insect thing, It's just like they just using this as I don't know.
Right in our faces.
Yeah. And then the Council of Elders. This is long after souls return to their spirit groups, they are called before a gathering of wise beings. A step or two above our guides, these ascended masters are the most advanced identifiable entities by still incarnating clients see in the spirit world. They give them different names such as the Old Ones, the Sacred Masters, the Venerables, and pragmatic titles like the Examiners or the Committee. The two most common names I hear to describe these highly evolved masters are Council and Elders. So I use these designations to describe this body. Because the Council of Elders does represent authority in the spirit world, there are people at my lectures who immediately become suspicious when I talk about the robed beings who wish to question souls about their past life performance. One man in Toronto couldn't contain himself and loudly proclaimed to everyone in the audience, "Aha, I knew it. A courtroom, judges, punishment." Our guides notify us when it is time to go before the council, and usually they will escort us to the chambers of these ascended masters. To the average client, guides don't appear to play a large role at these hearings. However, when a more advanced soul tells me they go to this meeting alone, it is not unusual for them to see their guide sitting on the council while they are there. When our guides do appear with us in front of the council, they are rather quiet. This is because behind the scene discussions about our last life have already taken place between guides and council members. The typical client sees between 3 to 7 members on their council. Advanced soul might have from 7 to 12 elders. They talk about council emblems, and there's these grapes and apple and stuff, fruit of life. They talk about this presence.
What's interesting too is the color coding. How everything is like, depending on your quote status,
advancement, right?
And advancement, you get a certain color code designation, and that's also usually involving the soul group that you're in too.
But you don't hear that from near-death experiencers. Almost everything's translucent, liquid light, or they're white or something like that. You hardly ever hear them say, "Oh, there's all these different colored souls."
Yep.
And maybe that doesn't happen until after you get past that, return point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
the point of no return, we'll call it.
They're still kind of in that buffer zone, that way station we were talking about, and not even at that level yet, or reach that point.
Well, here he's got this section on rebellious souls. There are other uncommon cases, especially with young rebellious souls, where I've had the impression they are fighting what they call an act of contrition by standing in front of the elders. The following quote is an example. "I get a little upset with the all-knowing ones. They lull you into complacency because they want you to spill your guts out to them." That sounds like loose, right? "Sure, I made a lot of mistakes, but it's their fault in sending me to Earth in a body that got me into trouble.
Boom.
When I complain about Earth, they don't level with me completely. They're stingy with information. I tell them that life makes you take risks, and my director talks to me about moderation. I said to him, that's all very well for you to say sitting here safe and comfortable while I'm fighting to survive down in a war zone." End quote. These immature souls, this is Dr. Newton continuing, he says, "These immature souls do not realize that to be on a council, an elder has survived many war zones."
I mean, talk about just crapping on I mean, that to me is disgusting, Wayne. I mean,
Dr. Newt said
yeah,
that. Right?
I mean, it's.
He's making a judgment there. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, it's just like, oh well, you don't deserve it yet. You're lower on the totem pole, so that's what you get. It's just this is the way it is, and don't question it. It's like, come on.
And there's a section on masking, like everything's telepathic over there, right? But it's masking. He's like, he writes, considering that our life between lives is in a telepathic world, early in my research, I wondered how souls could keep any thoughts hidden from each other. I found that young souls have great difficulty in masking thoughts from the more experienced souls, especially their guides. By level 3, mental telepathy becomes an art form, and this includes blockage for privacy. Without the emotional restrictions of the human body, such as shame, guilt, and envy, there is no motivation for subterfuge. In a telepathic world, the paramount consideration between souls is their respect for personal privacy. Souls live in communities with intense group socialization where they work on their own lessons and those of others. They open their minds to each other to such an extent it seems impossible to conceal intent. This fosters complete openness on karmic matters which affect those souls who'll be connecting to Earth. But so it almost sounds like these higher beings, these counselors or whatever, they try to convince us they're high beings, that they're masking there. Like we can't read their intentions, but they can kind of read ours.
Yeah, there's like some sort of that's what I was talking about, this veil. There's, we have the veil down here with the body, but there is a freaking veil over there too. No doubt. Because otherwise, how could we go through even like all these pre-birth experiences like we were talking about earlier, and they don't want to go. They are pretty clear in their intention, but they have made it through the meat grinder, the re-indoctrination, all that stuff. And there has got to be some sort of crazy technology that they're using that once you or they're just cross a certain point, that's
Jedi
it.
mind masters or something. They've mastered magic or something like intention and willful. I don't know.
I mean, because all they really need to do is get you to consent, and it doesn't have to, like I brought up many times, consent does not need to be achieved morally or ethically. It just needs to be achieved.
True. Right.
And believed. It's...
I don't know. And Dr. Newton writes, I find it usual for guides and elders to, they're talking about probing. He says, I find it usual for guides and elders to probe below a particular mental threshold of the less advanced souls. This is for the benefit of these souls. I know this sounds ominous. It would be if all this were taking place on Earth. Our teachers, and this is him writing it, he says, it would be if all this were taking place on Earth. Our teachers also engage in selective mind screening towards souls who wish to mind probe them. Boom.
Mind screening, mind probing.
Talk about mind probing and screening, and it's all. I know it sounds ominous. It would be on Earth, but everything's magically perfect over there. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. It's all on the up and up completely. What the hell?
So then he talked about some graduation, and then the Ring of Destiny, which is the screening room of future lives, and a place of life selection has been characterized as the Ring of Destiny, where we first behold our next body. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell, I think. I got some other stuff.
Yeah. What do you want to go to, the mediums or the remote viewing?
Yeah, let me just. No, actually, I wanted to touch a little bit on Calogero. I don't know how you say his name. Calogero Grafasi. Mm-hmm. He's another hypnotherapist, and just a couple of cases. Calogero asked to talk with this being, he's got somebody under hypnosis and they want to clear up some issue that they're having, but he always seems to find that there's these entities that are controlling them, right, interfering with their lives. So Calogero asked to talk with this being. His name is Oer, and he claims to come from the infinite. He has the form of an eagle in his dimension. He shapeshifts in order to escape from his bosses. He becomes invisible to the radar of his superiors. Calogero asks to Oer directly, and Oer says, there are numberless powerful creator gods. It's just a battle for power. They want to have control over him since he wants control over others. Control is part of the existing infinite production. They want to control everything. One can control everything mentally and telepathically. They are like me, eagle-like with wings. They are very aggressive. They live between light and darkness. It depends. And he says, tell them to get out of Paula's body and stand in front of you. He's like, it's our house. No, that's not your house. It's your prison. Haven't you got that yet? He's like, our house, not our prison, our house. They are controlling you. All those with a soul are like a house for us, a temple. As Calogero says, they told you this. They told you this in order to trap you, and you believe in them. Why should I believe that you are instead telling the truth? And he says, Paulo's body is not a house, rather a jail. They are keeping you in jail. Wake up, or it's a prison. Like, why a prison? It's a physical body with no value. He's like, what do you mean no value? Without the life, without the energy, we are nothing. And Calogero says, I show you where the energy is. And he replies, the energy is generated by the creative spirit. The creative spirit is generated by the human DNA. Cal says, yes, true, but it's also inside your DNA. Don't you know that? You own something and you're looking for it outside yourself. Didn't you know that? They laid a trap for you. He's like, okay, show me. First of all, tell me what's the DNA molecule like? How do you see it? He says, it's a braid made of 2 strings instead of 3 and 2 helixes. It's metallic with a light within, a silverish light. And Cal asks, do you know what this silverish light is? He says, consciousness. Cal says, through this genetic code, catch some energy from the infinite that is surrounding you, then manipulate it through your DNA and transform it into whatever you like based on the frequency. But you don't know all this and you don't know how to use it. Therefore, I invite you to grab the energy surrounding you and not from others, not from other bodies, neither human nor non-human. Rather than from around you, from the infinite, grab this energy and transform it. Let it go through your DNA, turn it into energy, into whatever you like. For instance, what would you like to transform it into? And he's like, I can't understand. He's like, you can't understand because they have erased your memory, so you wouldn't know a thing. You learn by doing, and you do by willing it. He's like, I want to be a starlight. Anyway, so he's like, teaches them how to not feed off of other people's energy and how to use the, I guess you could call it a cosmic energy that's all around. And then another case, I guess, is this investigation on the reincarnation cycle with someone named Gwen. And there's this light being named Samuel who wants to show her what's beyond. And he takes her near a waterfall, and she sees some light, a tunnel, a river, a boat, and a garden. And they get to a waterfall with a tunnel behind it. And she says the feelings she gets are not that positive. She won't take his hand, but she follows him. She goes with him through the tunnel where there's a dark place. So she goes back through the tunnel to where she was. Now the being looks like a man with human features, white long hair and beard, old. She says his role is to teach, to lead the way between the garden and the other life, to lead during the transition in the tunnel. She says there's all the souls that didn't want to go toward the light, they're not good. Souls in standby that don't want the light, and that's why it's dark there. The garden is a place we get to when we finish our vital path and we get into the extraterrestrial dimension, the place where we are welcomed after death, he says. Cal tells her to take the first few steps in the process of reincarnation and see what happens. And she sees a gate like an entrance to a town with many structures, as if she has to make a reincarnation request, as if the application form had to be placed in the structure. She says many families decide to do it together as a life project, like it's written down on a piece of paper and handed to the larger entities. And one of the entity tells her the project is almost always accepted, but that we build our own fate, because when you get back there, you'll have to judge whether your project was right or wrong. She says it's a painful process because in the other dimension, we are aware it will be hard, and we know we're being tested, and it's painful because we lose energy, and that's painful to the body and the spirit. She says there's always a different person who wants to take her for a ride to go with them because they deal with reincarnation, but it's always become something dark. And Cal says, when we normally go into a session of regressive hypnosis, a session about the reincarnational cycle, we often see this welcoming old man, a being made of light, a person somehow giving a sense of security, positivity, whatever. We have to follow a certain moment, but then upon following, we get to a place that's not the place. It's a different place where everything is ruled by fear, by pain and suffering, and that's when we end up reincarnating on the earth. And that's why I strongly believe the reincarnational cycle is something we must break. We must break it to definitely be set free from this cage. I guess we instinctively break it when anyway, during this reincarnational game, whether we like it or not, we acquire an awareness. They use us for their goals. During the reincarnational cycle, they use us to steal our energy, as the entity was telling you about. It's just as if we were farm animals, cattle, so they breed us to feed themselves for fun, for whatever reason, experiments, whatever, what we human beings do with animals. We are in a reincarnational cycle, which we believe we have to go through in order to evolve. actually there's a truth in all this. I mean, as a matter of fact, it's an experience which allows us to evolve. Still, the main aim is not our evolution. That's only a collateral effect. The main aim is the use by a third entity who can manipulate this because they are in a higher dimension. Therefore, they can manipulate us. So as long as we believe we need to reincarnate in order to evolve, also, we don't need to learn anything, because as long as we are separated from a universal general awareness, consciousness, whatever you want to call it. So as long as we are separated, therefore isolated into this body, into this mind, or into other bodies somewhere else, we are not aware. We need to get information from the part where we're cut off from. When a person is under hypnosis and manages to get in touch with this general universal awareness, even though the information is limited, contaminated, and altered, that person in that very moment will enjoy things she never thought she'd get to know during her daily life. So yeah, he's just talking about his hypnosis. And then at some point she says she's vibrating at 836, and he is, no, he's vibrating at 836 and she is vibrating at like 10,000 or more. She says the being that was lifted from the mud was vibrating at 160 and he's in real ecstasy. She says this place really looks like paradise there, just as we know it. She says there are mountains, creeks, flowers, grass, and little angels flying around, butterflies. She sees it extremely fake, though, like theater stages for children with a fabric background. Cal asks what's behind the fabric background. She says nothing. She sees like a hologram. It's like a cinema screen. He asks what's behind the movie screen. She sees a glass ball and nothing behind it. It's like seeing a glass wall with nothing behind it. The Jesus figure tells the poor guy, "You've been very naughty. That's why you're there. You've got to go down and try to do things better." He was a traitor, a cheater. He stole, he abused a dog. So Jesus tells him he needs to go back to the earth. She says he claims to be Jesus, but he's rather gross. He takes the shape of who comes along of his expectations. He reads into the other person and automatically gives the answer they're looking for. Jesus says we're all there to learn. He says, but Jesus never said to reincarnate. And Jesus says you have to be very smart in order not to reincarnate anymore. And Jesus tells him, you are not good, so I'm leading you to perfection. Try not to make any mistakes. It won't be easy. We need to delete your memories so you become pure again. I'll delete your faults, like he's given him another chance. So anyway, yeah, so Cal, he gets into quite a few of these type of scenarios with people. And it's interesting.
Yeah, familiar with the channel. Thomas donated $5 super chat. Tom says, great info, FC and Wayne. This is sick and diabolical information.
Yeah. Don't shoot the messenger.
No. Well, yeah, but no. Tom's cool. Yeah, he's it's just I mean, I really think it's all about, just being open to everything, trying to identify those patterns to come up with a rough draft, so to say, of what's going on here, what's going on in the astral, or at least a very small segment of the astral that we can at least see or get a grasp on. And even then, there's so many unknowns. But despite being able to know or look into all this information, still got to live our lives day to day. Still got to make the best of it. So as negative as some of this can be, I mean, there's a real positive message, because there's liberation and sovereignty at the end of all this. And we work up to it with our daily lives and try to enjoy ourselves. We got to enjoy ourselves still.
If we're negating a negative, that's positive. Yeah. I mean, I know math from school. It's like two negatives. It's like if you do 3 minus a -3, it becomes 6. It's like then two negatives become a positive. So it's like if we're negating a negative, that's a positive net effect, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We're not being negative by saying this. We're pointing out the negativity, which is positive. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm totally on board with you, Wayne. Yeah, just we all just gotta do what we got to do for ourselves and make the best of it. I mean, the only other alternative is not being informed, choosing to believe what is spoon-fed by the system, and coming back here.
That's exactly what I was going to say. You took the words right out of my mouth. It's that, if you look at the spiritual community at large and they're most people believe in this, guides and counselors, and we're here to evolve and to learn and all that kind of stuff. So that's out there. That's predominant. That's you hear that everywhere. And all I'm trying to do is say, well, not so fast. Let's consider the alternative. It's like a balance. It's like, I'm not saying that I'm right or they're wrong or anything. I'm just saying, hey, just consider, and here's the evidence, and make up your own mind. Yeah. And so what's wrong with balance? It's presenting the other side of the picture, I guess.
And it's there. I mean, in my opinion, it's there. Beyond words, and the whole reality just confirms it. Life experience is a big part of it too. Just being here, experiencing it, seeing how it functions, and then getting a glimpse into some of the other mechanisms that are running behind the scenes that are purposely hidden and, sectioned off from us so that we don't look at them. So something out, a system like this that doesn't want me to look at something, well, I'm going to look even harder. I mean, it's...
Yeah, so that's the section on the life between lives. I was going to go into the psychic medium stuff. And,
awesome. That was great, Wayne.
It's not as long as the other sections, but it's still, I guess, it's like something I'm not really that, I don't have a whole lot of expertise in this area. But,
same here. Yeah.
But I've been curious about it, and I've got some books by Ruth Montgomery. She was like one of the earlier mediums, and I mentioned Here and Hereafter, I think it was earlier. And so like one of the classic people is Swedenborg. Maybe he had like an NDE, but then he kind of goes into the spiritualism and all that kind of stuff. I guess this is an NDE. I know he wrote this book called Heaven and Hell, and he was talking about, he says, quote, that the Lord is actually seen in heaven as a son. I have not only been told by angels, but it has occasionally been granted to me to see it. And therefore, what I have heard and seen respecting the Lord as a son, I shall be glad to tell in a few words. The Lord is seen as a son, not in heaven, but high above the heavens, and not directly overhead or in the zenith, but before the faces of the angels at a middle height. I probably should just move this to the NDEs, because I'm pretty... God, now I'm like so convinced. I mean, he had maybe he was a medium. Do you know this Swedenborg character?
Well, I mean,
maybe somebody will answer. I should move it to the end. Is he
good? Ask your.
Is he channeling
question.
This stuff because he can talk to the dead? I can't remember.
That's my opinion.
His story anymore. We'll just keep going with it. I put it in here for a reason. I started questioning myself, and he says he is seen at a considerable distance in two places: one before the right eye, and the other before the left eye. Before the right eye, he's seen exactly as the sun, as it were, with a glow and size like that of the sun of the world. But before the left eye, he is not seen as the sun, but as a moon, glowing white like the moon of our earth, and like size, but more brilliant, and surrounded with many little moons, as it were. Each of them is similar whiteness and splendor. The Lord is seen differently in two places, because every person sees the Lord in accordance with the quality of his reception of the Lord. Thus he is seen in one way by those that receive him with the good of love, and in another by those that receive him with the good of faith. Those that receive him with the good of love see him as a sun, fiery and flaming, in accordance with their reception of him. These are in his celestial kingdom, while those that receive him with the good of faith see him as a moon, white and brilliant, in accordance with their reception of him, and these are his spiritual kingdom. So anyway, I think it goes to these different levels of heavens and stuff, and I evidently touched on hell too, because it's called Heaven and Hell. It's a huge book, man. It's like 700 pages or something, so I didn't go through that one, I will admit, but I wanted to just mention it for people. And there's so many different mediums out there. I mean, there's who's that? Jonathan Edward, Crossing Over, was one, a real popular one. One I started liking back when I was before into all this stuff was James Van Praagh, and he wrote this book, Talking with Heaven, or Talking to Heaven, and he went on the Art Bell show and everything. But I found this thing on him from YouTube, and it's called the Ask JVP series, and what happens when we die. And he says, you first must remember that you're a spirit first and foremost, encased in this physical shell, this human body, and that we come back here on his birth world to learn lessons. This is our schoolroom that we come back to learn various lessons. And those lessons can be about forgiveness, compassion, healing, helping people, loving ourselves, ultimate types of lessons. When the time comes that we've finished all of our lessons, we've taken all the classes that our soul signed up for, it is time for you to go back home, and that is called death. Death is a very natural process. I believe we've done thousands and thousands of times in past life experiences, but the actual moment when a spirit leaves a physical body, there is no pain whatsoever. It's a natural process. Next thing, you're outside the body. Many of you talked about stepping outside the body, but you look down at their body of being aware of a wonderful, beautiful light or a tunnel of light and being drawn to this light. And it often talked about there is no pain. I just want to mention here, it's like, I'm taking this from the open transcript. Like on YouTube, you can do the open transcript and you copy paste the text, and it's just too much to transcribe by hand. And so there may be one or two words here that are not exact. And so if it sounds a little off, you can listen to it yourself or just kind of read between. And so he goes, it's out. He says, when you look down at their body, you're being aware of a wonderful, beautiful light or a tunnel of light and being drawn to this light. And it often talked about there's no pain. As I'm looking at this light that envelops me, I become part of that light and I'm drawn to it. It seems that when we pass out of the body, we are met by all our loved ones, our family, our friends, our animals, our teachers who are waiting for us. So it's the same thing. It doesn't matter which category you go into, they're all telling very much the same story.
Yeah, they all funnel back.
And it may be what's going on. That may be the system that they've got that they're using to do what they do. And so he says, so I'm not saying they're lying or they're wrong necessarily. Yeah. It's just what we're being told by everybody. So there must be a reason that you kind of have to figure it out, right? So he said, what really set up this experience, preparing for our transition. So there are many, many people involved in our transition. He says, now we're sitting outside the physical body with our deceased loved ones, friends, and guides. And as a newly arrived spirit, if you could say that, when you left the body, there's a sense that you no longer belong to that physical body. It's a shell, an overcoat. There's no connection with it. There's no emotional connection with it. It's more of an object. It seems that we go through to this beautiful golden light or a tunnel, and many people have described that in near-death experiences. And once we arrived in this beautiful golden light, which seems that it's just a matter of thought that brought us over, that we're now in a world of thought. Just as an interim, I don't hear that many people describe it as golden. It's usually white. I don't know why he's calling it golden.
Same. Yeah, it's rare. It's rare.
Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that in there. It's like he's supposed to be like one of these experts that talks to all these dead people, and it seems like he's not 100% on that one. But maybe we're all flawed, when you're speaking extemporaneously off the cuff, you make mistakes, whatever. So anyway, give him the benefit of the doubt. But he says, this world is made up of a beautiful, beautiful sense of it. Gardens, houses, buildings, and they're more beautiful than we even have here on Earth. There are flowers of all different types and sizes and shapes and color, and trees and gardens. And these buildings are expansive and so beautiful. It seems very, very natural. Many describe it as being very, very natural. They realize very, very quickly that this world, the astral world, is a world of thought, that anything they think can materialize right in front of them. So it's really communicating in a different way. It's communicating with the world of thought. What you think, you create. So when you meet somebody, you telepathically speak to them. You no longer need a voice. You telepathically connect with them. And you see all of your loved ones that you've had your whole life, those you haven't seen in 20, 30, 40 years. This reunion is connected and you meet your loved ones. We're now in the astral world, the spirit world. The astral world is a world close to the earth. It's a replica, if you will, of the earth world with some beautiful gardens and trees and buildings and so forth. And depending on how you pass into that realm, let's say you died in a hospital, you were ill for a very, very long time. You might find that you wake up, you come into consciousness in a place in the spirit world, which looks like a hospital and not like the hospitals we have here on the earth, but a building with open roof, and you'll feel the love and energy all around, the prana of life. And if someone just died of a heart attack, you might find that you're instantly aware of being in that spiritual world. And there isn't much of a transitional period for you. You're just very awake instantly. It all depends on each individual soul and their actual type of transition. So once you're in the spiritual realm around your friends and your guides and your teachers, it seems that one of the first things that you do as a soul, a newly arrived soul, is there'll be a time for you to have what we call a life review, where you look at your life and then not only observe it, but feel it and be part of it. let's say you live in the physical world for 70, 80, 90 years of age. In the spiritual realm, in the astral world, you will review that life not only from your point of view of observing it and living it, but also from the point of view, the perspective of every single person that you interacted with. So for instance, let's say you're in a very bad mood one day on the earth and you yelled at somebody at a store, and that person at the store went home and yelled at a family member, and the family member called somebody up on the phone and yelled at them, and so forth and so on. When you have that life review, you'll become that person at the store. You will feel how they felt when you yelled at them. You'll feel how the next family member felt when that, bad person, and so on. We call this the ripple effect, and you are responsible for that rippling effect. There's no God that says, you go here, you go there, you go there. You are your entire judge and jury. You're the one who's responsible for all your thoughts, your words, and your deeds. So look at it this way. We come back on the earth to go to a school, and when you pass into the astral world, the spirit world, you kind of have a review of how you did in your test. All those lessons you passed and the ones you didn't. There really isn't much of a judgment. And, I'm not sure I agree on that. It's like, they keep pushing this thing about end of years and stuff. They say that you judge yourself and that you're not
please, I know.
But yet we got these council of beings showing us every little bad thing we did, and that, we made mistakes. You got to go back. Isn't that a judgment? Or sometimes you get sent back against your will.
Of course it is. It's absolutely a judgment. They're full of shit.
So anyway, he says,
full of shit.
Yeah, I don't know.
It could be reflecting back on us, but but no matter how you slice and dice,
convincing you to make that judgment.
Yes, that's exactly, Wayne.
They're kind of helping you judge yourself. You don't have to judge. He's right in what he's saying is that you judge yourself, but they're basically with guilt and shame and stuff getting you to judge yourself.
Exactly. They're utilizing something. Some sort, regardless of whether it's being pushed back on us through some like technology, we can call it like a technology, some sort of energy thing. The point is there is a mechanism in place that is absolutely doing something to try and guilt trip us. Shame, guilt, fear. Matrix. And of course, just think about all the stupid stuff in some NDEs, Wayne. How many NDEs you run across where someone will be talking about some good deed that they did for somebody, and it is the most, bless their hearts, it's something cool, but it's lame. It's like the lamest thing. So of an entire person's life, you helped an old lady cross the street. Or what?
Told somebody, I like that shirt. You may be like even lying to them.
Yeah, it's like, what?
Nice, which has value in itself, I guess, to say something kind and help.
I hear shit like
somebody. So he says there really isn't much of a judgment. There's just a sense of I could have done better. I should have looked at this in a different way. Oh, if only I knew more than I know now, boy, I would change the way I decided to do something. So hopefully, but look at my video here. It'll cause you to be more mindful of your thoughts, words, and deeds, how you treat another individual, and what energy you give out, because in your life review, you're going to see it, feel it, and hear it. You get away with nothing. Once that life review is finished and accomplished over time, it's a process. It seems that every soul can do what their heart desires. For instance, let's say you want to learn how to paint well on the earth for some reason. You have a time to do that in this spiritual world. You can do that. You can take classes and lessons, and you can learn how to paint wonderful works of art, or you can learn to play the piano if you desire to do that. Or you can be a landscaper. You can build houses if you want to do that. Anything your heart desires, any creative aspect of what you want to express through your soul, you get to do it in the spirit world. So that goes on for eternity because there's no time. And as you change desires, change the atmosphere around, you change. Don't forget, you also go and visit your family and friends on the earth, and many times you can be a guide of theirs. Maybe they accomplished something on the earth with them, but now in the spiritual realms, you can go back to the earth realm and be a guide or teacher to your loved one on the earth, and perhaps influence them in a very positive way to live a better life. So that's a little bit of what it's like to die. So that's what James says. And some of that stuff he says, that it's a good thing to think of. Like he says, you can do anything you want. You can, paint or be piano, or you can build houses. That's the thing. Like when we want to build our afterlife, those are the kinds of things we have to think about, like what you want to do and just manifest it. So
yeah. It's just as long as it's in your own realm and it's the intention is set outside the matrix, I think. But maybe that doesn't even matter. But that's the only path I see myself going on.
Or you can just kind of stay in the void or the light or whatever you want, where the place where you're above all that, outside the matrix. And some people just seem to think like, well, they say it's like, I could stay here forever. It's just peaceful. And just like the lady said, made the comment about the boredom. I think she's right. It's timeless over there. And so there probably isn't any boredom. You could probably stay there forever and be perfectly happy. But yet people keep saying, oh no, you need to come there and manifest these lives over here, go to a better world, do this and that. And it's like, well, what's wrong with just being happy? Isn't that what the pursuit of happiness? Isn't that what we want?
Look, Wayne, I'm with you. I'm with you completely on that aspect of it. The only thing I worry about it's not that, it's not like, oh, let's be miserable in the afterlife. No, I think it's more or less the ultimate level of protection to make sure that that you've put everything in
guard. You ever let your guard down there,
because if I'm in the void in the matrix, I am not going to feel comfortable. But that doesn't mean, that maybe, I think once.
So we could set the intention on going to the void that's outside the matrix.
But your void. I think it's got to be your specific void. Your void has to be your realm. Like the way your intention puts it out there is your creative abilities puts out there that, yes, I want to go to a void, but it's going to be my void realm outside of the matrix specifically. And then,
I think it can do that.
Yeah, I do too.
When we get into the NDEs, there's a NDEer that said that when he saw the tunnel and the light, he said, no. He says, I want my own. And he created his own tunnel and went through that.
Yeah, I remember that actually. Who was that? Do you remember offhand? I heard that one.
It's on the NDERF.org website.
Yeah, we'll get into that next week. Okay.
Yeah, we'll get into it next week. I mean, I could try to find it, but it's not that important right now. But
it
was just one person on the NDERF site. It wasn't like anybody that wrote a big book or anybody that anybody knows. It's just one person. Okay, so the next person is Sylvia Brown. She used to go on the Montel Williams show all the time.
Boy,
so
her
she
cruises, her cruises.
I don't know. I think she was charging like $700 for a half hour or an hour. I don't know. It's just these people spend a lot of money. Or charge a lot of money to give readings and stuff on the phone and with people. And anyway, so she wrote many books, but one of them that I went and got on Kindle is called Life on the Other Side. And she tells about all the stuff that, souls do in the afterlife. And so she talks to this ghost. She says a ghost is created when at death, the spirit either sees the tunnel and turns away or refuses to acknowledge the tunnel in the first place, with the result that it gets caught outside of its body between our dimensions and the dimension of the other side. Rejecting the tunnel and depriving themselves of the natural journey to the other side creates a delusion that all ghosts share. They have no idea that they're dead. The other thing I want to mention before I get into this is these people, I remember her saying in the book that she read as many books as she could on spirit realm and spiritualism and all that. So they kind of question that. I would trust somebody more likely that never heard of any of that stuff and is like all of a sudden hearing spirits talk to them and they're coming up with stuff versus somebody that's like done their research and is just, they've already theoretically they could just regurgitate the research and say, that's what I'm finding when spirits talk to me.
Yeah, that is a problem. That's a problem.
I think there may be some legitimate spiritual mediums. I'm not saying that no one ever talks to a ghost or spirit.
I'm with you.
But anyway, it just makes you wonder. So she says, rejecting the tunnel and depriving themselves of the natural journey to the other side creates a delusion that all ghosts share. They have no idea that they're dead. So she says some of the ghosts don't know that they're dead, and that, I don't know, might be true. She says, after the tunnel, arriving on the other side, she says, now we've established how and why most of us move through the tunnel to that very nearby dimension called the other side. We can proceed to the other side itself and what actually happens when we get there. Contrary to much of what's been written about this part of our journey after death, we don't just come flying out of the tunnel into a pile of fluffy clouds, grow wings, and play a harp for the rest of eternity. There is life over there, real, stimulating, joyful, and blessed, and the tunnel is only the beginning. The reunion that takes place when we arrive on the other side is one of the most ecstatic events we ever experience. experience. Don't forget, we're not traveling to some strange, unfamiliar world. We're returning home to the dimension we came from, surrounded by spirits we've known, missed, and loved through this and many lifetimes, both on Earth and on the other side. The spirits at home are alerted that we're on our way when, as Francine describes it, I think that's her guide or whatever, it's just Francine that she's always talking to. As Francine describes it, our light begins blinking, the light of God we each carry inside us that acts almost literally as a pilot light to keep our soul illuminated, our own eternal torch, she says. She says, also waiting for us on the other side, almost without exception, are, please listen to me, our soulmates. You may have heard me bristle on this subject before, but for those who haven't, I'll be glad to explain why the many misunderstandings about soulmates upset me. Each of us was created with both male and female aspects, and in fact, experienced lifetimes in both genders. We were also created with a kind of identical twin spirit whose male and female aspects are mirror images of our own. That twin spirit is our soulmate. She talks about spirit guides. She says, we'll discuss exactly who spirit guides are in detail later, but it's significant that our spirit guides are among the first to greet us when we emerge from the tunnel, because our spirit guides are the ones who personally accompany us through the variety of steps we take to complete our transition from this dimension to the dimension of the other side. Once the reunion celebration's finished, most of us are escorted by our spirit guide. Yes, to a magnificent domed, pillared, Romanesque building called the Hall of Wisdom.
There it is again.
Located just beyond the tunnel, the first building we see when we arrive. You've heard the saying, all roads lead to Rome. Similarly, all tunnels lead to the Hall of Wisdom. Its entrance is stunning, graced with vast marble steps, brilliant statuary and fountains, and sweet-smelling flowers in constant and possibly beautiful bloom. Inside the Hall of Wisdom is a gigantic room surrounded by pillars. Our guide leads us to one of the many smooth white marble benches and then steps back while we take our seat and begin a process that many near-death survivors recall, but few remember in precise detail. I like that term, near-death survivors, instead of
yeah, I like that too.
Since she talks about the scanning machine, she said the words, my whole life flashed before my eyes, had become almost a lighthearted euphemism for a close brush with death. But the truth is, that's exactly what happens on the other side, in the quiet stillness of this sacred room of the Hall of Wisdom. At the center of the room, amid the circle of marble benches where we're seated, lies the scanning machine, a huge convex dome of pale blue glass. And inside that glass dome, we watch all the events of our life play out before our eyes, almost like a movie, but in three-dimensional hologram, through the variety of steps we take to complete our transition from this dimension to the dimension of the other side. I think I must have deleted something then. Anyway, once the reunion celebration is finished, most of us are escorted by our spirit guide to said the same thing. It's a gigantic room surrounded by pillars, and the scanning machine. Yeah, sorry, I got a little bit.
No worries.
I didn't preview this before I went on the air. So, anyways, the life reviews.
I gotcha.
He says, we review our lives for as long as it takes, even rewinding certain parts over and over again. Time consuming is simply a non-issue in a place where time does not exist, and the scanning machine is an essential step in the eternal progress of our spirits. We arrive here to overcome specific challenges and accomplish specific goals, and we compose a detailed chart for our upcoming lives to help us realize those purposes. As we experience the scanning machine, we have the benefit of total recall of the chart we wrote in an atmosphere where there's no negativity, and the very air we breathe is infused with God's unconditional love and understanding. Viewing our lives not through our earth eyes, but through our spirit eyes of complete, honest fairness means that we aren't just watching what we did from a new point of view. We're also watching the people around us with the compassionate insight we might not have offered. And once again, she says, we judge ourselves, our triumphs and failures, our humanity or lack of it, our acts of kindness and selfishness, our moments of courage and cowardice, and above all, how successfully we accomplished the charted goals that made us choose to leave home in the first place. It's the toughest judgment we could be subjected to, because just as there's no negativity on the other side, there's also none of the ego-driven defensiveness and self-justification that prevent us from facing the truth of our actions while we're on Earth. Our spirit guide, who was with us every step of the way through the lifetime we're reviewing. And she says the other side is not some mythical place out there somewhere. It's really right here among us, a mere 3 feet above our ground level, perfect mirror image of Earth's natural topography. She says there are 7 continents, our mountain ranges, plains and deserts, our oceans, seas and rivers, forests, jungles, islands, foothills, every other work of nature on Earth all exist in their original perfection on the other side. Because there's no erosion, pollution, or destruction there, the mountain ranges are as sharp and soaring, the bodies of water are as pure and azure blue, and the coastlines are as ruggedly intact as they were here thousands and thousands of years ago. On the other side, where time does not exist, where every living thing always was and always will be, nothing ages, nothing rots, nothing corrodes. Every square inch of land and water is magnificently, eternally new. That includes Earth's 2 lost continents, Atlantis, anyway. So she talks about the hub on the other side. She says, no matter where we go, the tunnel leads to the same entrance, and it's a quadrant that geographically corresponds to the west coast of our North American continent. I don't know why she's saying all that. The vast pillared hall of wisdom. And then she talks about the hall of records, the hall of justice.
Justice. No, but there's no judgment, right, Wayne?
Right. To the immediate right of the hall of wisdom. Well, you go to the judge yourself, I'm sure. To the immediate right of the hall of wisdom sits the beautiful hall of justice, the hollowed structure.
Yes.
Hallowed, I guess, structure where the council convenes. We'll discuss the council in detail later, but for now, we'll simply acknowledge them as the revered and distinguished elders who play a key role in our lives, both on the other side and during our lifetime on Earth. The Hall of Justice is pillared dome in classic Greco-Roman, just like the other 2 halls. Mostly it's commented on by people who remember the details of an NDE. It's endless, achingly beautiful gardens. I mean, all that stuff sounds beautiful, man. If there's the true source of all the stuff that's corroded here and if there's really some pristine, perfect form of that and a better, I mean, that just gives you an idea of what you can create after you die if you want to.
We can make things pop once we have a grasp of what the hell we're capable of. I think also it's really important for us to figure out where the weaknesses lie, and not just us, but just existing and those around, like everything that we've experienced in the past, like kind of doing a really in-depth accounting once our memories of our existence come back into play, and we say, hey, for all we know, Wayne, we may have been here a while, but we also may have been in other realms and fallen for some other shady shit. So the way I see it is, it's like, I want to know, where am I vulnerable and where are my strengths? So then if I want to go out and explore and do something, I can. But at the same time, I want to know exactly where I stand so that I am protecting myself at all times going forward. And, that's just kind of my hope that, we do come to and have full on memories of this place and whatever else we did before, and I really think that does happen, because otherwise they would not hit us so quickly when we're crossing over. I mean, it's
with this
not necessary.
Attractive light, right?
Yeah, I mean, why put out the love bomb and the fake granny, the fake grandpa, and or maybe the half real grandpa, half real grandma? I don't know what the hell they're doing. All we know is that they try and they hit us real hard the second we're crossing over, and that's when we need to say no. Not like I'm telling you anything you don't know.
I'm right on board with you, man. Absolutely well said.
Yeah, I just want to jump in really quickly. One last thing before we continue. Thank you so much to Deanna, Glitch in the Matrix. She just sent a super chat. And she said, just a little something for helping us get to 5 DFC. Just kidding. Love and light for never. Thank you so much, Dan. That is really, really generous and kind of you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So then she goes on, she talks about you can like create your own home and stuff like that there. And she says our bodies at home, real as they are much more low maintenance than they are here. We can assimilate food for the taste and experience of it if we choose, and prepare food if it's something we happen to like doing, but we don't need to eat or cook. We can lie down and rest if it's something we enjoy, but we don't need sleep. We have hearts that pump blood and lungs that breathe, and we have all our other organs as well. Interestingly, they are located on the opposite side of our bodies from where they're located in our bodies on Earth, an exact mirror image. And she says the facile answer to where do we live on the other side is anywhere we want. It also happens to be the truth, because houses there are perfect reflections of the residents' wishes. If you've always wanted to live in a looming stone castle or a Tudor mansion or a penthouse or a gingerbread chalet or a contemporary split-level ranch or a modest one-room log cabin or a communal apartment, that dream is just a quick dimension away. It has nothing to do with what kind of housing you can afford, since there's no money at home, and certainly no concept of status or lack of it. What it has everything to do with is the fact that most of the houses on the other side are built by projected thought. So once again, project your thought, set an intention, and you can create whatever house you want. And if you want to eat food, even though you don't have to, you can do it. She says the whatever we want answer settles the question of furnishings and household luxuries too, by the way. If you have an affinity for jacuzzis or recliners, or if a house wouldn't be a home to you without a grand piano or an entertainment center, project it into place and it's yours. The options are as limitless as our ability to dream of them. She says, we love everything we do there and have no desire to take breaks from any of it. We engage in extracurricular activities and have social lives simply because we love them as well. And the facilities that house them are yet another prominent, cherished part of the landscape of home. Concert and lecture halls, perpetually filled to capacity, offer nonstop appearances by the most brilliant performing artists and speakers humankind has known. Breathtakingly beautiful and acoustically impeccable, they have been infused and recreated through our world, from the great Colosseum of Rome to Athens' Parthenon to the modern-day Hollywood Bowl, all graceful open-air marriages of the other side's reverence for nature and our own God-given excellence. Non-contact sports are celebrated activities at home as well, embracing everyone who loves to play and those who simply enjoy watching. The landscape would be unrecognizable without magnificent athletic stadiums, golf courses, tennis courts, ski slopes glistening with the eternal artificial snow, perfect waves for surfing, crashing onto pure white shores, and accommodations for every other form of organized exercise, all of which make our finest playgrounds here look humble by comparison. We are inexhaustibly, blissfully social on the other side, from small gatherings to huge, busy, laughter-filled ones. And we create every possible opportunity for parties and dancings and picnics and festivals and quiet outings with a few of our closest loved ones, because there isn't a structure, plaza, park, garden, meadow, hushed grotto, hidden reflecting pool, or brightly tinted fairground that's restricted from the public.
Oh,
she paints a pretty good picture there.
Yeah,
She's a good writer.
Yeah, very well written.
And that's what you need to do. If you're going to create, manifest your own world, you better be very detailed. Don't just be very vague, because you're going to, who knows what you're going to get. You're going to get a big blob, all right? You got to have everything detailed.
Well, I just want to ask you something about your opinion on this. I've kind of evolved on it. I forgot who mentioned it, but it might have been Jimmy, or it might have been Vince. Oh no, it was Burkay. Okay. So I was talking about, one of the things was, initially I thought, okay, it's kind of semantics, but he brought up a good point where, my goal is to, like I mentioned, as soon as I realize I've passed, to put a layer of protection around me, almost like a bubble that is even tinted, where I cannot see visually, but I also cannot hear audibly. So nothing can pierce this layer around me. Then initially I was thinking, okay, I'll create my own teleport, so to say. And that teleport will be filled with my intention and protection for myself to lead me to basically my void realm. my realm that is impenetrable. Nothing can mess with it. And then Burke mentioned something interesting. He said, well, portals.
That's important because the void mentioned a couple times earlier, where they're like in a void, and all of a sudden a voice comes into them. But if you set up that intention, like you just said, that voice won't come through. So
cut it off. So there's no visual, there's no auditory, no telepathic communication. So you're protected. And then
good idea.
Yeah, and then I was thinking, do a like a portal. And then Burke is like, well, maybe if you make a portal, you might, even though your intention's there, it's a little, maybe a little more riskier. Yeah, a little more riskier. So. And when you think about it, it's just intention.
If you set the intention though that nobody can come through the portal except for you,
or maybe you may not even need the portal. Just the intention alone,
right? Yeah, you don't need a portal.
Should be more than enough. So I scrapped the portal.
Instantaneous telepathically, you'd be from one side of the universe to the other in a split second, or wherever it is you're going. Yeah.
So that was just something I wanted to run by you. So I think
opening a portal, it's just like an added step that doesn't need to be done. And who knows what it could open. It's like, I agree.
Cool.
So she talks about the spirit guides, of course, and then the council. But she says of the spirit guides, she says, with the exception of dark entities who go through the left door when they die and come right back in utero again, every one of us on Earth has a spirit guide, a best friend from home who watches over us and advises us, whether we're consciously aware of it or not. Not only do we each have a spirit guide, but most of us will also be spirit guides for someone in the course of our soul's journey. It's an often painful, often thankless, always awesome responsibility, and is the ultimate honor to be asked to take it on. And then on the council, she says the council, also known as the elders or the master teachers, is its own phylum of 18 highly advanced male and female beings who essentially act as God's spokespersons on the other side. They are the exception to the rule of everyone at home being 30 years old. As an emblem of their revered wisdom and sanctity, their appearance is venerable, with long white silver hair, softly framing faces of extraordinary beauty, unlined but mature. The men wear identical white silver beards, and both the men and women dress in gracefully flowing robes. Like the angels, the 18 distinguished members of the council never incarnate, and their esteemed appointments to this body of elders last for eternity. The council presides over a vast white marble room, the Hall of Justice, at a gleaming white marble U-shaped table. A legion of gold-winged principalities stands sentinel behind them as a proud, silent testament to the council's awesome gravity. They are not a governing body, since government and laws are unnecessary on the other side, but because their wisdom is as vast and infinite as their love for us, they are entrusted by God with responsibilities that profoundly affect both life at home and our lives on Earth. But yet you hear about Archangel Michael having a sword and all this stuff, and it's like, so wait a minute, do we need governments? Do we need soldiers and stuff? I mean, she's saying you don't need that stuff, but why is he walking around with a freaking sword, right?
Yeah, I know. Why y'all threatening? Like, and I love how they're like, oh, they're this and that, and they're amazing, like just automatically assumed. Ugh. Yeah. Well, why are you walking around with a sword? The hell?
And then something about mission life entities. Every one of us has a purpose, and each of our incarnations is a building block toward fulfilling that purpose. In our spirit minds, we know what that purpose is. Our spirit guide knows, the council knows, and of course, above all, God knows. There's no purpose more important than any other. Just as we on Earth need ditch diggers and bricklayers and teachers and paramedics and artists and charity volunteers as much as we need kings and presidents, and that armies full of generals with no foot soldiers could never win a battle. Every purpose is indispensable and of equal value. One of the most advanced, not most important purposes we can sign up for is that of the mission life entity. Mission life entities have essentially said to God, wherever on this earth you need me, I'll willingly go. They will sacrifice physical and emotional comfort and set aside any fear of the unfamiliar for the mission they've signed on for, not to convert or preach any specific religion or dogma, but to gently, compassionately rescue, reconnect, affirm, ignite, and celebrate the spirit of the divine in every child of God they encounter. So that's almost like the Bodhisattva vow. You're just, whatever you want me for, I'm going to go do.
Yeah, just sign me up, boss. Sign me up.
Just tell me where to go and what to do. I'm there. So he's talked about these 7 levels of advancement, and one's re-entry to the other side, the reunion with our loved ones, and the trip to the scanning machine. And the second one's an orientation, where she talks about it might involve cocooning, the towers, whatever cocooning is.
Oh, that sounds great.
Yeah. She says level 3, the physical and science skills, every vocation that is literally hands-on, from agricultural and animal husbandry to forestry. And she mentions a bunch of stuff. Level 4 is creative arts, including writing, sculpture, music, painting, and performing. I like that one. 5, research, in which all areas of progress are explored. And then 6, teachers, orientators, lecturers, seminar leaders. 7 is a level to which only a few rare souls choose to advance, where the spirit forfeits its identity and is willingly absorbed into the quote-unquote uncreated mass, or the infinite, unfathomable force field from which the love and power of God emanate. So once again, there's the merging. Forget, just, set aside your own individual identity and merge. So that's her book, summarized quickly. And then
did a good job on that one.
Yeah. So somebody at one of the IONS meetings told me about Suzanne Giesman. So I checked into her. She's like one of the other mediums that's out there, pretty popular, I guess, or I don't know. But so she's got this thing on YouTube, I think it was, what our loved ones are doing in the afterlife. And she says, let me share with you just a few of the magical examples those across the veil have shown me what they're doing. They do so with evidence, which is what I love. They tell me things that they're doing that the loved one can verify by saying, well, that's exactly what I would expect they were doing. Why is that? Because, guys, heaven is a state of being. Heaven is right here. It's knowing that we are an extension of love, of goodness, of the source. Some of you might call that God. It's a field of infinite potential, and we are part of that. When you can bring that awareness into your awareness here, let me tell you, life becomes heavenly. It doesn't mean that life is without its challenges, but it's a whole shift in perception. So what happens when we leave the physical body behind us? We perceive the source all around us. We're suddenly aware that we have been a part of that all along, but we might not have realized it. Without a body, some people become aware of this immediately when they feel this amazing love that surrounds us across the veil. Some become aware of it when they literally see the light that never goes out across the veil. What a beautiful idea. So if we can just bring that awareness here, we're all the better for it. But across the veil, in that place that we call heaven, it's not really a place, but a state of awareness of our true nature, which is creative and is all about the soul continuing the journey that we're living here. That journey being one of constant evolution of the soul, meaning how much love we are bringing into our awareness, because love is our true source. So what are they doing across the veil after that long introduction is what we do here, and that's creating with our thoughts, always seeking to create something better than what we've already created. Don't we see that all around us? We're always trying to bring more life, love into our life to reduce our suffering, but to have fun at the same time, to express our naturally creative nature. So if you have something that's your passion here, believe it or not, across the veil, you're going to want to continue that. So it depends on how awakened you are, what your true nature is, an extension of God, of the source that creates reality across the veil. I got from my guides about what our loved ones are doing across the veil, and they go into great detail about the level of evolution of the soul across the veil. So if you want to, for a while after you pass, continue doing your very human activities, such as playing sports or reading or traveling, that's exactly what you do. But after a while, you realize that those types of activities may lose their interest, and you become more interested in perhaps helping those who are still on earth to raise their vibration and learn to experience love that's our true nature. And then perhaps after a while, you may become a spirit guide, and onward and upward goes your advancement as you continue becoming more and more like our source, which is pure love. So as for specific examples that let me know that there's an afterlife and that we are busy and what specific things we're doing, you may be quite amused when I tell you some of the very human things, very earthly things that some of our loved ones are doing. I remember in one, the mother asked me, what's my son doing across the veil? And without making assumptions, what I do is I just ask them. I know they're right there with us during the reading. So I asked this young man, what are you doing? And it made me laugh because he said, I'm riding my bicycle now. why would we ride our bicycle across the veil? Well, number one, because we really enjoyed doing it. We really enjoyed that. But the evidential part of that example was the mom just got so happy because it turns out that he used to love riding his bicycle here. And after he passed, his dad took that bicycle and decorated it and painted it with his son's name and decorations hanging off it. And he would ride it for charity to raise money for a foundation they started in their son's honor. And every time that dad would ride his son's bike, he said to his wife, I swear I actually feel him riding with me. So how's that for evidence? When we asked him, what are you doing across the veil? And he says, I'm riding my bicycle. Clearly he's riding along with dad. She says, we don't automatically become, if they're a good medium, whether they're, I don't know, who knows how they're doing it, but like Von Prague and a lot of these people, they come across with very specific evidential details that, who knows how they get it.
The key thing with them is don't give them anything.
Well, I'm skeptical of like big audiences and auditoriums because there's been some people that have
Peter Popoff.
Yeah, I don't know the names of, I don't want to mention any, but they'll talk to them before they come in while they're waiting, and they get people's names, and then maybe they can do a little background check, or they ask, oh, what are you coming here to say? And somebody might say, oh, I really want to get in contact with my mother. And you know what I'm saying? They're getting information. And then the guy can come out, and he got a little earpiece, and they're feeding him. Oh yeah, the woman in the red, on that side, she's, so they can oh, is there anybody here that, what I'm saying? It's you just can't trust everyone.
Especially money. With, money, internet. I mean, it's so easy. You don't need that much. I mean, even if you just had an astrology chart, you can do a lot of damage to somebody.
True. Yeah. So
date of birth will go a long way.
I'm not saying there aren't. I haven't had a lot of evidence. It's not like I go around getting readings done. So I'm trying to open-minded. Maybe there's people that do single one-on-one readings that are okay.
I've had some amazing readings when I lived up north. There's no doubt there's real ones, and I didn't give her anything, and she was scary on target. So it's just a matter of playing it right. It's truly the only way to, in my opinion, to detect someone legitimate. You just don't give them anything. You just nothing. Let them do the job.
Not even your credit card. They don't, no name to go on, no time to do any research.
No name, no date of birth, nothing. Hide everything. Make sure nothing's visible.
Exactly. Yeah. So she says, we don't automatically become all spiritual when we cross the veil. It's our job to become loving and angelic while we're here. So I tell people we don't sprout angel wings when we die. It's our job to grow them here. So if you are truly loving here, you're going to open up more of the love that's your true nature. When you pass, if you're a real curmudgeon, it's a grumpy old man. Well, I brought through more than my share of curmudgeons and readings, and people say, yeah, I recognize them. This is the only section I really didn't go through and read through and highlight the more important things so I could cut out the crap, because it's kind of verbose. But I don't know. She was saying, they asked him what he's doing, and he says, golfing. And so his wife said, oh, I'm glad to hear that, because golf was his passion. But before he passed one of his legs, the other thing was something about he was running or something like that. But she said, glad to hear that, because golf was his passion. But before he passed, one of his legs was amputated. So how's that? We don't really have a physical body when we cross, but we can create one in our awareness. It's like lucid dreaming. So that man created a body that allowed him to golf every day. And he assured her, I'm standing firmly on 2 feet. So, they're bringing through, who knows if evidently she didn't have any information to go on. Another young girl named Jen, she said she brought through her mom, and she showed it. She was handicapped. She was in a wheelchair for most of her life due to a car accident. So it was when I asked Jen, what are you doing across the veil? And she said, I'm eating pizza and drinking hot chocolate by the gallon. Once again, why would a soul do that across the veil? Well, the great part is we don't need to do it for nourishment because we no longer have a physical body. But Jen, it turns out, loved pizza, and hot chocolate was her favorite drink. I had no way of knowing this, but she was right here beside us for that reading. I had no way of knowing this, but she was had an operation on many during her physical life. And one of those operations, she had the bad pizza, had She had pizza the night before the operation and ended up causing complications during the surgery. Because of that, she didn't eat pizza after that. So you see the evidential quality of that message from Jen that's sent across the veil. Not only is she fine, but she's eating pizza every day and drinking hot chocolate by the gallon. So I'm sure after a while, Jen realized she no longer needs that kind of pleasure. All we need to do is tune into the love that's all around us across the veil. So I don't know. She just gives across a few. This is what you typically run across with me, psychic mediums and stuff. They'll bring in some evidential stuff. But anyway, she was saying like what some of the things they do across on the other side. And if we are out there doing what we really love, whether it's golf or playing guitar or, whatever you love to do, paint, then that would be a great thing. If I don't know, just stay away from those guys and counselors that are, but go, like you said, go to your own realm. We'll get into that in the solutions episode, but
it's going to be fun.
Yeah. So have you run across the Jeff Mara
podcast? I have. Oh God, he's got a lot of great stuff. I think we've reached about 2.5 hours on this one. So how about we take 5 minutes on a break and we'll dive into wherever you're headed next.
This is just the last section.
Okay.
Sure. Okay. Actually, there's
got remote viewing, right?
Yeah, we can take a break and then come back and just finish this up real quick. And the remote viewing is going to be real quick, and then we can just talk a little bit. So
sounds good. All right, my friends. Thank you, Wayne. Thank you, everybody out there. We'll be back here in about 5 minutes. Right. Thank you.
It'll be a little cliffhanger for him.
Yes, the Jeff Mara cliffhanger.
Right. Da da da.
Dun dun dun.
Dun dun. Yeah, it's just amazing how it all just dovetails over and over and over and over.
Yeah. All right, brother. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Thanks. coming back, my friends.
All right, let's do it. Yeah. Yeah. So I was mentioning the Jeff Mara podcast, and like you said, he's got like all kinds of interesting people on there, and it's not just near-death experiencers, although I think that's the main thrust of it. But I've seen him talk to people with aliens and just all kinds of stuff. Yeah, so this one particular caught my attention of Scott Taylor. And anyway, he was saying he's a psychic medium, so it's not just near-death experience. He says, I can communicate with people that are dying. I can have two separate consciousnesses. What I learned was that in these spaces, that intention is everything. When you move into expanded states of awareness, and in particular, in that space where you can communicate with people who passed, your intention or the intention of others, that's what drives experience. I began to realize that how we conduct ourselves, how we think, what our attitude is, what our hopes and dreams are, where our heart is. I think that's the key, is where's our heart? And being able to say, I want this to happen in my life. So this intention that we have about who we are and how we exist in the universe drives everything. And so it's been a lifelong quest for me. So that was kind of interesting. And then there's this other...
That's straight into the point.
Yeah, it's like everywhere I look, I mean, anything I try to look at, it's just I don't know that I even looked at something and go, oh, that's not very interesting. Maybe one or two, but it's almost like everything I looked at is like, well, that's got information just right in line with everything.
Loaded.
So, yeah. So there's this other one called the We Don't Die radio show.
Oh yeah.
Sandra Champlain. That's where when the girl mentioned that I should check out Suzanne Giesemann, when I did a search for her, I think actually she did maybe mention that We Don't Die radio show. I don't remember. But so I found that she's got like all kinds of people on there, and it kind of touches on this exact topic. Not to be confused with this book called We Don't Die by George Anderson. That's another one. He's a psychic medium. But her We Don't Die radio show, she had Roberta Grimes on that I found to be pretty good and interesting information. She's a business attorney who had two extraordinary experiences in childhood that prompted her to spend decades studying nearly 200 years of communications from the dead. Using this material, the principles of quantum mechanics, and the latest development in consciousness research, she was able to assemble a detailed picture of what happens after death. She says, we have a great source of original data about the afterlife. Most of it was received through deep trance mediums, and it came in the very end of the 19th century and about the first 40 years of the 20th century. So I spent a long time just reading every book I could find, and there are quite a few that were put together about these communications. Most of them were just communications to people who were, grieving and, mom or dad or someone here died. What they say to us is much more detailed, and I figured I would start to see some similarities among these, and I'd be able to sort of construct some notion about what it's like where they are. But what still astonishes me, and to me this is one of the two best pieces of information that this is real, is the fact that when you read hundreds of them, they are all talking about the same place. I never found an outlier. Always the same physics, the same process, the same pastimes, the same geography, the same everything, and that's not possible. I mean, some were received in the Great Britain, some were received in the United States, or even a few from other places. They all went to the same place. She says the people who are there tell us that's reality. Where we are now is the illusion. That's how real it is to them. It's solid there. There's beautiful foliage, beautiful flowers that are colors we've never seen because they're beyond the visible light spectrum. We have much better sensory abilities there than we have here because we're stuck with what our bodies can pick up. There we have what's called my sight, which I don't know if I got that word right, because like I said, I do the open transcript from YouTube and bring it over.
Yeah, but, sometimes it's
she
a
says,
little rocky.
Maybe she said there we have what's called my sight, which is panoramic. They can see behind ourselves as well, and so it's sharp there. There's one fellow in the early part of the 20th century community communicating through one of these deep trance mediums, and he had been almost blind in life, and one of his children said, well, Dad, can you see now? He said, let me tell you how well. I could see that what looks like about 50 miles from here, there's a mountain range and it has foothills. The mountains are beautiful, by the way. They're much, much more beautiful than here. There are foothills covered with trees. I can see from every leaf on every tree on every foothill in front of those mountains. That's how well I can see them. Here I thought, wow, that's pretty graphic, and our ears are much, we can hear things that are much more beautiful. They say we have not heard music on this level at all. And she talks about Mikey Morgan, a very, very advanced being. I think she says the last was in a body in the 1600s. He came back briefly, died at 20, so he could communicate with us from there. And when he was asked this question in his book, Flying High in Spirit, and what he said was that, well, the question was, what do you miss? He said, well, the only thing I really miss is eating. Give me a Chipotle burrito. That's pretty funny. He said, the problem is we can eat here, but we never get hungry, and we never get a sense of feeling full, and what we're tasting is our memory of what the food tasted like. So it feels like eating food, but it begins to feel like too much trouble. Now, this is exactly the same kind of thing that the dead were telling us 100 years ago. So there's someone who just died. There's someone who died 100 years ago telling us the same thing. Yes, you can drink if you want to. She said, we have all those things, but it may be much more satisfying here because I know what with a hungry belly food tastes better. Things like that problem. It's an exercise that feels necessary here and there, just feels like a waste of energy, right? And there's so much more important things to do. Mikey says a hug there is 100 times better than any hug you've ever had here. What the dead have told us consistently for almost 200 years, we've been getting good communications from them. What they told us consistently is that there really no sex there, because although we could do it, there's no sex drive. So they just don't want to bother. But what there is something better. There's a merging of our energy bodies that we can do, which is like a whole body orgasm. It's the best feeling you could possibly imagine, has no morality attached to it, and that's quite a hug. So I'm talking about, you can have food over there, you got like astral sex, I'm sure they got beer, you can play golf, tennis, whatever you want to do, probably. So
they got it all set up so it's so it's all ready for you to get sucked into, and then eventually they'll shove you back down here or somewhere in the matrix.
Yeah, and then she talks about life reviews. She's we hear that when we die, there's a life review. There is a life review, but nobody ever judges us other than ourselves. What happens is that we experience all the events of our lives apparently in detail, and I don't know how this is possible. This is what they tell us. We very quickly review all the events of our lives, and then we go to, or we have around us, people that love us, and what we try to do then is forgive ourselves and forgive others for the things that they did and what we did. Now, it's easy to forgive others. They tell us it doesn't matter what that other one did to us, but we are to forgive them all. It's easy to do, but what we have a lot of trouble doing is forgiving ourselves. Emotions we felt as part of the events, and also all the emotions that other people felt, and in experiencing that, we easily forgive them. We get to the point where we really have to begin to forgive ourselves. It's not easy. And she says we judge ourselves pretty harshly there because we know what our plan was, and we know we screwed it up badly. It's a gift to be in a body right now. There are many people who would have loved to be in the body that you're in now, because it's such a wonderful opportunity to grow. We can't really grow spiritually in the afterlife levels very well because there's nothing to push against. They think of your life as an afternoon in the gym, okay? You're trying to reinforce a few kinds of spiritual muscles. Maybe you had trouble with in a previous lifetime, right? There are these machines, which I've seen but never tried and never will. I just did help you with your physical muscles. That's what your mother-in-law is. That's what the loss of a child is, or you're having loved and lost is, or I can't remember all the things that are happening in people's lives. Bad job, money problems, all those are planned into your life by you and your guides together. It is a way for you to grow spiritually, and knowing that you can sort of understand, since it's possible if we know what's going on, it's possible for us to make huge spiritual progress with just what we planned into this lifetime. We want to do it. Those who love us want us to do it. Everyone's rooting for us. So she's comparing this to like going to the gym to get stronger spiritual muscles, right? So,
I want to bump you up.
Yeah, right. So just a few more little things from her, and then we're done with this section. She said, I'm thinking about life, and there's a lot of really hard, crappy, awful things that happen, and it's so easy to be locked in as a victim. And I know people that everything in their life is negative, and I don't even want to be around them because it's just negative, negative, negative. Oh, woe is me. But if you really do embrace what you're saying, that here's where we get this growth spiritually, and those crappy things that happen are a gift because they're going to push us to grow. It's so much more empowering to live life from, gosh, you get a flat tire, and you could complain about it forever, or you say, well, I must have caused that for some reason. What kind of growth can I get out of this?
I think flat tire growth.
Flat tire. Okay. That's the thing. A lot of this lessons supposedly that we learn here are not applicable on the other side.
The most mundane crap. Yeah.
So
doesn't even, it's not a problem over there.
Yeah. So she says, I think what you're saying is you can learn more and we can grow more if we get the job done while we're here in this physical bodies, and it's not hard. It's really easy. Whatever the question, love is the answer. Whatever the question, forgiveness is the answer. Sure. We are here to learn to love perfectly and to forgive completely. That's why we're here, not just love, the people that you're puppy is cute and your tiny child and your parents who haven't been so good to you, not just them, but the people on the street, the guy on the street who sneers at you, and the people who have done you wrong, loving, finding out, figuring out how to love them as the perfect parts of eternal mind that they actually are. That's why we're here. So yeah, somebody does a wrong to you, man, just smile at them and say, well, thank you for that teaching lesson.
Top of the morning to you.
So you're just basically, what's the word, enabling them to continue to do what they're doing, right? You're not calling them out on their actions. You're not at least being indifferent to it.
Thank you, Wayne. Exactly. And that's that's exactly what I've talked about on the channel about forgiveness. If you're racking your brain over like, oh, I need closure with this, I need closure with that. But if let's just say the person did something wrong to you, if they're not seeking you out, then where is the closure? You're seeking out closure for maybe within you, but it's not like going both ways. It's going one way. And some of the stuff that I've heard and some of the stuff even I've experienced in my life, it's really ridiculous, because this whole forgiveness without expecting anything or this that. I mean, I understand us doing something wrong to somebody and trying to make it right, okay, and seeking forgiveness. But when there's something ridiculous that happens, or a traumatic event that happens when you're younger, and forgiveness is being sought out by us because it's like, oh, well, that's just the way it's supposed to be. That's just not, that doesn't connect with me. It doesn't. It feels like it's forced. It feels like it's just not natural. So if someone does you dirty and they don't care that they did you dirty, then why the heck are you trying to reach out and get some sort of closure? Some of the weirdest, creepiest ones are in the deathbed visions and visitations. Those are some of the top craziness, because I've seen all sorts of examples, but one, just one that sticks out that I've talked about before is a woman who was abused, I think, by her father or stepfather for all of her childhood, sexually abused. Okay. Mm-hmm. And she made it a mission as a teenager to get out of the house the day she turned 18. And that's exactly what she did. And she did not bother with this man for the rest of her life. I think the father died, I don't know, 60s or 70s, and she died many years later, in her 70s or right. 80s, whatever the case was.
Right.
And she starts getting premonitions that, hey, clock's ticking, something's happening. And then conveniently gets a visit from the father or stepfather who abused her, and it's
dear old dad.
Yeah, dear old dad. Well, hey, it's time for us to make up. There was no making up while he was here. There was no making up on his deathbed with her. It's not like, she wanted nothing to do with him.
Told him he had to come down and do it.
Yeah.
If you want to grow.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, what they do is they set it up where they have these visions and visitations from the father, stepfather, whatever it was. Let's just say father. And she's on the hospital bed in hospice, and it's scaring the heck out of her. But then all of a sudden he starts sweet talking her and saying, oh, well, so they plop her in an experience where she is living his life and experiencing what he experienced. Kind of like the life review, like you do someone 30, you go in the life review, and they, hey, feel the guilt and shame for what you did to somebody in your life review for those moments. It's the same. It's like a mini life review, but the roles are reversed. And she is experiencing that, and then what happens at the end of right before she dies? Oh, all is forgiven. All is forgiven. Meanwhile, she didn't deal with this guy for 50 years, 50 years, 40 years, 60 years, whatever the heck the amount of years were, and and she found peace in that. And it's like, you want to say, oh, that's good that she found peace, but when you see the bigger picture like we do with the whole Matrix thing, it's disgusting. It's disgusting how it was just set up from the jump to make her have this closure, but it was so manipulative. So yeah, that's it. You know, that's just one example. I mean, the deathbed visitations are
They're very
extremely revealing.
I was with my grandma. I think I mentioned this before, but when she was in hospice, I was there with her for like 8 days or something, and she had some visitations. But you know, interestingly enough, she wasn't visited by, not that she told me of, at least she wasn't visited by any family members. It was
was it Jesus?
Somebody she didn't seem to know. No, it was just somebody, and it was asking her birth date. Ask her birthday. Oh, she's like telling her, "Oh, my name is this, and my birth date is this, and oh, that's my grandson Wayne." And
yeah, we talked about this. Weird. It's like almost like a verification system. Like, oh, am I in the wrong place? Right. You know, is this really you? What's the last 4 of your social?
Gotta make sure that toe tag has the right name.
Oh my God! Sorry.
No, I understand. But so the last just a few things I wanted to mention about this is it turns out that the highest possible, she says, it turns out the highest possible spiritual vibratory rate is love. The more perfectly we love, the higher is our spiritual vibratory rate. And that's something which the great religions have as the core very often, but they don't emphasize them as they should. We're here to learn to grow spiritually. And the more we love, the higher we grow. And the more we do it without thinking of ourselves, it seems the higher we grow. She says, I remember thinking that was one of those aha, holy cow moments that really convinced me that everything we're looking at is an illusion. It is. It's a really, really good one. Oh, it sure is. And we actually come into this for most of our minds, not even accessible to us while we're in a body. And we come into this body basically having pledged to agree in the trick. We are pledged not to look behind the curtain. And then the very last thing I wanted to mention on it, she says, I think one of the things that we all got as a gift and a curse sometimes is this internal thinking that's, man, I'm not my own best friend. I criticize myself all the time. I think I got fear that shows up, and that's something that we were given as part of the trick to just have us help not remember who we really are. It's really just that they want us to take the gym seriously. We're here. They want us to take seriously these lessons, but I can assure anybody who's worried that somehow it won't be fun. Once you know this stuff, the fun of my life really began when I began to understand the truth. It's the most amazing thing because you have fears, you have worries, you have pains. Yes, you get to taste a burrito, but it's just that small potatoes compared to understanding that you are here, your best loved child, have been in infinitely loving God. That to me is a lot more important. And when I really got all that, wow, it's just the best feeling on earth you could imagine. I think then you start taking it, even though you can see that the machine is just a more seat machine. I don't know the translation from YouTube, but it doesn't quite accurate. But she says it's a kind of trick, right? You no longer feel the grief you felt before for people who have died because you understand what's going on. You can see behind the curtain a little bit, but it makes you all the harder try to ace out the lessons. You know, it's just a lesson, but I still want to get an A. So she likens it to working out at the gym, and she even mentions it's a trick. You know, we're tricking ourselves
right
in a
out
sense to do it, to get you to do it, right? It's almost like tricking yourself to get you to go to the gym. Like, oh, I'm going to go to the ice cream store today. Oh yeah, this machine. It's not really a machine. It's an ice cream cone I'm eating. Yeah, it's like, I don't know.
Sure. And throw anything in there, fill in the blank.
Right. And so the last section is remote viewing, and I really don't want to go too much into that because I think initially, like Brett Stewart was one guy who came out and was talking about the moksha, the liberation and stuff, and he had this stuff up, and I made notes on it and everything, and then I think he put it behind like a paywall or something. So I really don't want to share stuff that's potentially for people to pay, so I don't want to like be sued or anything, you know. So,
I don't think it'd be sued. I mean, the videos. I mean, anyone who wants to find the video can look on archive.org and easily find it. But
still, all the same.
I mean, I think honestly, I'll keep my mouth shut.
Yeah. So
I'm not
anyway, he was
showing
just
this one. Not for
talking
copyright
about.
reasons,
He
but
was talking about a grid and souls that they're going to the
45-degree angle.
Yeah, and yeah, I don't want to get too specific on it, but it's just he was basically saying that to not, I think not to go to the light, that it's part of the afterlife that gets us kept down here. It's basically the same thing we've been saying. So, yeah. So he said is very, very important. It has to do with not going into the light when you die. That was going to be like the big reveal. So I'm not sure if I ever watched it or not, but
I could probably send you a link. I have it, or I have it downloaded.
I think I did. I just don't remember. I think he had I think I'm getting confused with Farsight Institute. Courtney Brown from Farsight Institute did one where they had like a little short preview. I don't think it was like the full blown thing, but it had enough info in it to where he was basically saying the same thing too, and about the light. So anyway, I just want to point out that there's remote viewers out there saying it too, and I think I want to say Lynn Buchanan was another one that he had an NDE actually too. I think, or maybe it's through the remote viewing. No, Lynn Buchanan, I think, was another.
Yeah, he's the military remote viewer.
And so he started questioning when he went to the light. At first he thought it was God, but then he later thought, well, it can't be God because he saw boundaries or borders on this light, and that God wouldn't have any kind of boundary to him. So he changed his mind on that. Anyway, that's all I had on all that.
Wow. So, that's it, Wayne?
That's it.
You sure?
I wish I could have been more thorough and detailed about it all.
No. Jeez. God, Wayne, I invite you onto the show and you barely share anything.
All right.
No, dude, I can't thank you enough. It was amazing. Every time we talk, I'm so thankful. I mean, I am. I'm so thankful.
Part two is going to be every bit as good, I think, is necessary with the NDEs and the OBEs and the whole alien. It's going to be quite the show, I think.
Yeah, man. It's oh boy.
I was thinking that this is kind of like just a warm up, and that's the real meat and potatoes. But man, after going through all those counselors and guides, and this is pretty important too.
They each have their moments, but then they kind of, so they all kind of show the mechanisms. I think that's really what I kind of push on the channel. It's all about like, look, there's mechanisms here. Go out and do your own research, and come back here if you want to take a look, or use my channel or your website as like a jumping point, or Dan at Overwatch channel as a jumping point to prove it to yourself, or at least leave the door open. The way I kind of present all of this on a regular basis is like, you don't have to believe anything. Go out, research it yourself. But even then, if after you look at it and you still feel, oh, well, I don't know about this, I don't know about that. Okay, fine, no big deal. I mean, all you really need to do is just have your intention set for when you leave here, that you're not going to be messed with, because that's really what it all boils down to. But at the same time,
and not go to the light.
Not go to the light. That's a given for sure. But at the same time, I kind of tell people, like, it's really important that you go out and do the work on your own and try and prove it to yourself, because what that does is it helps you process it better, and it helps everything sink in. So then when your time does come, you're more built up. Like you're not going to have reservations.
Are you getting close to the microphone? Because it's like I hear this feedback, or like.
Oh, you hear feedback?
Right. I don't know if you're like getting closer to it or something.
No, it was actually kind of far away. Okay.
Okay.
Let me see.
Let me see. Up to
All right. Okay. Seemed like it was
Yeah,
okay.
it's okay.
Maybe it was like a hiccup or something. Does it sound okay
Yeah.
right now?
Yeah, sounds fine.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so that's like all the data. I mean, I went through these different areas and I tried to, go through all the books, especially on the, the pre-birth memories and the life between lives. I mean, those are about almost all you can find. Like the reincarnation, yeah, I could have done the Jim Tucker and Carol Bowman and stuff. I was just getting tired of doing so much.
Dude.
Yeah, so yeah, and there's like probably obviously a lot more psychic mediums out there. That there's the one area where there's a ton that you could maybe find different data, but the data's out there, and how you choose to interpret or how anybody chooses to interpret it, it's up to them.
And how they're, either legitimately getting it or extracting it off of stuff that we look into, or what's kind of run of the mill psychic stuff, and kind of mixing it into their own thing. So I mean, it's one of the areas that it's difficult to. It's one of those areas that, just like from the past life regression thing, the hypnotic regression thing was a really difficult leap for me. But mediums, there's just so many out there that there's you got those gems, but you also have, it's more inundated with bad actors than anything else.
To me, the near-death experiences are the real gem of the whole thing, because those are not, I mean, they may filter it through their own filters or whatever,
belief
but
system,
biases and stuff, but it's still, they seem very sincere, and there's a lot of the very commonalities that you just get over and over and over. So it's just too many people not to be. I think 5% of the population or something has had a near-death experience at least. But,
I remember reading I think it might be more, because I remember reading, I think it was Moody that talked about it. I think I could be wrong. Maybe it was Tucker talking about some of this stuff too.
Yeah, I've got some data on it on next week when we do the show.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Give some stuff like how the percentage that go through the tunnel and actually go to the light, communicate with light, stuff like that. And not everybody that has a near-death experience sees the light or anything, or even remembers their
some people
detailed experience.
Yeah, they'll flatline and have nothing. But I kind of feel like there's a memory wipe thing going on there, but obviously can't prove it. I think a lot of these entities have memory wipes or gaps at a minimum, because sometimes the flow just, you'll be getting this, and then it'll just kind of like, and then it'll pick up again. Like you'll kind of sense that something should be there, especially when they're coming back.
Yeah,
that's where it seems to shine.
Going into the near death experiences and stuff, I mean, it's like I had the theory out there, tricked by the light and stuff, but it's like I mean, it wasn't until I really delved deeply into like the thousands of, and did searches and stuff on different topics that, I mean, it's like I was kind of a little leery to go into it, going, man, I'm going to go out there and they're going to basically just say everything I'm saying is wrong. And but then it's like when I'm finding like 40, 50 ones with, aliens and stuff like that, it's like, well, wait a minute here. And if, Kenneth Ring is one of the guys that co-founded IONS, and he's got a book or chapters talking about the connection between aliens or the similarities between aliens and NDEs. It's like, wait a minute, there's way more to it than that, because once you can show a connection with aliens, then that opens up a whole new ballgame, because the aliens are so, if you get into that topic, they're so invasive and harmful. And and then they lie to us all the time, right? Deception abounds in that area.
Yeah, and then you have that whole segment that all the aliens are amazing. They're incredible. They love us. You have like both extremes. Well, you have kind of all three extremes. You have the one in the middle that kind of acknowledges both ends, and then you have the ones like more like the new agey UFOs, where everything, the Palladians and blah 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 blah, all that crap. And then you have the downright evil grays and all that stuff. So yeah, I mean it goes in both directions. I guess it just depends what camp you kind of fall into, if any at all.
Right.
All right, Wayne. So what I'm going to do is you're more than welcome to join us. I mean, we've been going for, I don't know, what, probably 7 hours? Maybe.
No.
About
maybe
6.5 hours, something like that.
Probably. Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is switch the stream over to a new one where we'll have a call-in show. So I don't know if you want to join us or pop in later. You're more than welcome. I'll send you the Zoom link. And it's just going to kind of be a roundtable just to shoot the shit. Like, it's just kind of like I do it, you know, maybe once every other week, once a week, depending on how I'm feeling. And yeah,
I'd love to hear some feedback on what people think, if they found value in it or
I know they found value.
If you disagree, bring it on. That's fine. That's fine.
I know that there are a lot of people. I'm just looking at the chat. It's hard for me to keep an eye on it throughout the whole show, but everything that I've seen is everyone is very appreciative that you've decided to spend some time with us, and I am too. Yeah. I mean, really, Wayne, it's I thank you dearly. So
thank you for letting me come on and share all this research, because there's not many people that want to have me on or. You know,
I was really, really happy when you decided to do this series and just take all this time. I mean, really, I can't thank you enough for.
Well, I don't know how much longer I'm going to be around, so I figure, man, I need to get this information out and in detail. So,
there are some. We'll talk privately, but there are some shows that I think. Could probably get you on to share your information too. Some bigger channels that
kind of difficult now. I mean, they got to be
not
pretty,
now,
like with my mother's situation and stuff. It's just I hate to make commitments and then cancel and stuff. And
even if you do it later in the year.
What's the word? I'm a reliable enough guest to make sure I'm going to be. I hate to tell somebody, I'll do it on that day, and then something comes up, and it's like, and you know how the things are happening around this topic. Where, so I don't know.
We'll talk about that more privately, but don't. I would say that the actually Jeff was open to. He invited me onto his show. Mara, and so I know you can get on too. I mean, I think Dan should go on too. I think we should really do a full frontal assault on this.
I never like to contact anybody and say, hey, can I come on your show? I mean, I just like, hey, if they want to do it, they'll contact me.
Same here. Yeah, I was on his Discord, and he said, hey, you want to come on? I was like, all right, sure. Yeah. But that was last year, and I what I wanted to do is kind of like you, like put a full outline of everything on how I feel it kind of loosely works.
Right.
Because I know with Jeff, you only get a certain amount of time. A lot of these channels, you only get like an hour. Like with me, we can, basically.
Yeah, it's hard to
die
can you imagine like, let alone tonight's show, which is just a half of the experiences, and then you throw all the other stuff, all the other episodes. You try to condense that down to like an hour or even 2 hours. It's pretty hard. I mean, I've done it, but it's you're only touching on like the top 3 or 4 points, if even that much. So
that was my problem with. I started writing it out, and I was like, how do you condense all of this down into an hour, or like an hour and 15 minutes, hour and a half? I mean, it's like,
just make very generalized statements, a big overview, like a summary, and you can't go into like as much detail with all the different quotes and stuff. But
I think my drive is to try and get other people to just like listen with a different ear, because I know when I was listening to all this stuff, I was listening to it and taking it at face value. But, I think it's all about kind of putting that interpretation out there where people can say, okay, well, they're saying this. And you may have used to believe that what they were saying was true, or, noble or moral or ethical. But now I'm kind of looking at it as, there's something wrong here. And then case builds up, case after case after case.
My biggest concern is I went back to like look at some of the old links I posted for old interviews, and I've done like probably close to 30 or something. And like, half or more, I mean, most of the links anymore don't even work. They're taken off the channel or site or whatever. And it's just all the like all this stuff, like 2 years from now, who knows? You go to look at it, and it's like none of it's around anymore, and it's just like all that work, all that stuff is just poof.
All that
like
time,
nothing.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's
Well,
probably
I mean, you might want to
keep on coming on places.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think you should. The other thing you might want to consider doing is every time you're on a show, Wayne, download the episode, put it on your website.
I will
YouTube.
for these.
Yeah.
I will for these for sure.
Yeah. Oh, don't worry, I got them too.
Too much work.
So I got them too. So if you need them or something, just if you're missing one or whatever, just let me know. I'll be able to help you out.
I can get them. It's just as easy for me to do it instead of
Great, Wayne. Okay, so what I'm going to do is we'll end this stream and we're going to head over. I'm going to in the chat, everyone out there in the chat. I want to, before we even go, I just want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. And we are going to have a awesome, fun chat, open forum chat, I guess we can call it. But before I go, I wanted to thank Glitch in the Matrix. Thank you, Deanna, for your kind donation. Thomas, thank you for your kind donation. Lone Traveler, thank you so much for your kind donation. Elvis Presley in the house, thank you for your kind donation. And I also wanted to welcome newest Last Timers Club members, Elvis again. Welcome, Elvis Presley. And Ella Feria, welcome. Sorry if I butchered that. And Hagrid, welcome as well. So what we're going to do is I will pop up this link to the other stream in the chat. And we should be live within the next 5 to 10 minutes. What I might do is go live and do the countdown clock and make it a total of between 7 to 10 minutes. Just to give some people some time. I'll also have the Zoom link pinned in the comment section as well as the live chat. So if you'd like to join, feel free. So here's the link. Open Zoom call-in show. So head on over there if you'd like to join that. And if anyone wants to call in, let me get the let me get that for you. Anyone wants to call in, just don't call it right away. Just wait about maybe like a minute or two, because I have to disconnect with Wayne, give Wayne the new link, and then we're just going to transfer everything over to the other stream and that Zoom meeting. So just keep that link handy, and we'll leave it at that. Wayne, again, I want to thank you so much for coming on tonight. It's been a hell of a show, and you never disappoint, brother. Never.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate
awesome.
you letting me come on again. So
yeah, thank you. All right. So what I'll do is oh, by the way, everyone out there in the chat, description tab has backup channels, Odyssey, Twitter, Instagram, all that happy stuff. If you want to check that out, and if you can hit the like button on your way out, if you found value in this information being shared today, that would be great. Okay, Wayne, I'll disconnect our call, and then I'm just gonna send you a message on Zoom with the new link, my friend.
All right, sounds good, man.
We'll see you on the other stream. See you on the other stream, everybody. Thank you. Take care. You get that? Okay.